for like 20 minutes or so, give us a download, and then we'll jump into a conversation.
Okay. As I was just saying on the pre-talk just before we've gone live here.
Just hang on 1 second, guys. I'm gonna remove everyone off the screen, and then we'll begin. Talk. Hopefully you guys are all doing well out there. Coming at you guys from somewhere in the smoky British Columbia, Canada. Let's send some energy to the people here in British Columbia to make sure that we don't burn down. There's over 300 fires happening across the province, and they're all pretty well concentrated in the south, and a lot of people live in the south. So please send your energy and help us energetically fight these fires. Now, that being said, I got a wonderful show for you guys this morning, and it seems Daisy's quite excited about it. We've got Gaz with us, and we're going to be talking about the original language. And this is going to get very deep, so I'm not really quite sure how long the show is going to be, but I can tell you one thing, it's going to be extremely, extremely interesting, and we're just going to get right into it. So let me bring my co-host on. You guys know him, Clarence Mitchell, Closer Encounters. Welcome, Clarence. How are you today, brother?
Very good, thank you.
Awesome. I thought you were mute there for a second. And then we will bring our guest on, Gaz. Thank you very much to Gaz for giving us the time here this morning, Sunday morning on North America, and it is 2:00 a.m. in Australia. So it's nice for Gaz to really give us this time. So before we get into this, guys, I got a couple of announcements to make. We have a disclosure event coming up on August 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. We'll be featuring 55 speakers from all over the world and all different schools of thought in an attempt to get a total disclosure, because we know the government is not going to give us the disclosure which we're looking for. So it's really up to the people to provide the disclosure for the people. So this entire total disclosure is by the people and for the people over the course of 5 days, featuring 55 speakers. It's going to be co-hosted by Rob Yachts from Full Spectrum Universe, Clarence Mitchell from Closer Encounters, as well as Neil Gore from Portal to Ascension. And also, with that being said, I've got a series coming up beginning in a couple of days about Aboriginal mythologies and creation stories. I've got a PowerPoint presentation already made, so just waiting for a couple of days to get this out. So keep an eye out on this space for that. So with that being said, let's jump into our show here for this morning. Thank you very much, guys, for joining me here to really talk about this very, very interesting topic, because as we know that the English language is very corrupted, and it's not really the original language. In fact, it's only a few decades old, if you can really say that. Prior to this English that we speak today was not being spoken 100 years ago. It was a totally different language. And as languages progress through evolution, there's one that's being left behind, and that is the one that we're going to talk about today. This language was the global language that was being used to create blueprints and kind of what have you by the super civilization that was here prior to us, the megalithic building civilization that built the pyramids and Stonehenges and Sacsayhuam, blah, I don't even know how to say that, so I'm not even going to try. Pumapunku and like all these sites like Stonehenge in Australia, things like that. built by the super civilization that preceded us. So God's Gods is going to give us a download on the original language, and we're going to let him go for about 20 minutes to a half an hour. And then after that, we're going to engage him in a conversation. So if you guys have any questions, please post them into the comments. And if you can cap locks your questions, that would be much appreciated because they stand out. Another thing before we begin, the show is brought to you by the Eden series of Paul Anthony Wallace. I will be providing the links in the bottom, so please check that out. And with that being said, welcome, Gauze. Thank you very much for your time here this morning, brother, and really appreciate it. So why don't you give us a download on the original languages?
Okay, then. Thank you, Omar. Thank you, Clarence, for your time here, because the best gift you can give to anyone is your time and your energy, which you can never get that time back. So, and the best thing that we can do is all for us to tell our own story, and through us all telling our own first-hand sort of first-party sort of experience of life in our own story, then we can intelligently, consciously, intelligently sort of observe the interconnecting intersection sort of points of our stories, so we can all collate what is collective sort of truth and how all the energy points of our stories actually link up and interconnect. So I just thought I'd start by saying that. Basically, the Magyar language as we know it today is, whether it was called another language before that, okay, in the very beginning, okay, that's still a point of contention that's still being deeply researched at the moment. But this Magyar language, even from the time that it was an instinctive, intuitive language that was never need to be spoken, the only time we spoke was when we sung, when we were doing song lines, an actual proper earth and omniversal custodian sort of work. Otherwise, the language was a feeling language of instinct. And real sort of time is no time that moves in abstract sort of waves in omnidirectional sort of flow and motion. And so this programmed sort of clock time we have now is like an inorganic sort of overlay juxtaposition on top of our real reality. And this, in this language we're talking at the moment, in order to explain very deep, or I should say describe these very deep sort of creation sort of aspects, core creation mechanic aspects, we can only do so in English language really, because it doesn't really have the phonetic strength or capability to do that, is describe it in metaphor and parable and acronym and all sorts of ways that people think are riddles and codes and stuff like that. And in a way it is when we're talking in this sort of language, but it's the best way that we can sort of describe things in this language, and we have to strive to make things simple enough so everyone can get these very deep sort of comprehensions, understandings, as I like to call it. So the Magyar language itself contains the actual magic, the original magic that we come from, that is what we know is of organic creation, omniversally, not just here on Earth, but the whole omniverse. And the Magyar soul, long before Homo sapiens and through all the different sort of hybridizations that have been from when we've been cut down from giants to what we are now, travels back to what's called Világtanga in Magyar, that's known as the ancient world of sea, okay, or the ancient ocean, okay, and which we know as space, okay. And it's funny how marine admiralty law also includes all of what we know as space. And so that's sort of giving the game away, letting the cat out of the bag, saying, well, what's space? It's marine admiralty law. That's the law of the high seas. That's water. So what's actually out there in space? Is it space or is it actually liquid and water? And I've been saying this for years. And so we go back to such an ancient civilization that we barely have any history of in that sort of regard, that they've deliberately sort of obfuscated by making our instinct that used to be conscious, okay, before Babel and all that sort of thing, like as you were saying before, telepathic was probably the last stage of that, okay, because we have sort of like instinct, intuition, and then up to sort of psychic and telepathic sort of realms after that. It's sort of like it's sort of a creation sort of sequence. But if you're centered in your root here, your anchor, Okay. It's cool to use all of it, but if you're not centered, it leaves you sort of open and prone to much manipulation from these other sort of disincarnate sort of forces that have, the invader forces that have taken control of this planet, which predominantly are this Draco sort of reptoid hybrid race. They're not actually reptilians, but they're actually reptoids, because they're a combination of reptilian, animal, industrial sort of toxic chemicals, you name it. It's like they throw everything together, and that's what they spent a lot of the Atlantean period doing, actually. And a lot of the actual ET races we see sort of supposedly we're told about in space are actually a whole heap of Draco hybrids that basically stem from the original sort of 7 Draco sort of tiered hierarchical sort of castes that are mainly sort of Shems, Hathors, and what we know as tall greys. So this is the thing. They've basically orchestrated on that level a whole sort of fake sort of identity hijacking of like our original sort of ET beings, you know, which are essentially connected with our soul totems and what have you on that sort of metaphysical level. So basically there are a whole heap of Draco pigs with lipstick in the new age that are pretending to be guardian angels and all this sort of stuff and all the rest of it. Even on the good side of the duality was the bad side. As a Canadian Indian shaman in BC, from where you are actually, Omar, he actually said to me, because I did some Hopi and combined sort of Magyar sort of rituals, water ceremonies actually in late 2018, that was very important sort of custodial sort of work. And he said to me at the time, he said, well, look, you know, I'll just tell you straight up, and I knew this already, but it was great to get the validation that he was one of the few people in the know that he said, look, the bad side are controlling the good and the bad here. And I said, yeah, I know. What we've got to do is bring it back all to original creation, so it's not polarized, any of it. It's not duality as well, because the whole original reality is non-dual, okay? It's stupid to think there's no such thing as 2 fixed poles or points in space. Is the sun bipolar? How ridiculous. It's omnipolar. It's infinite. You know, so that's what we got to get it back to. We got to get back to that whole sort of state. Why, by all means, in the physical, we're here, masculine and feminine, but we come together and not polarized to either side, to either masculine or just feminine. We're centered within the middle metaphysically in every sort of human being that's male and female, so that we become the ember, which is a collective Magyar term for man and woman together. It's literally like a stick person. It doesn't have a defined sex, because literally we are the whole of that original energetic source consciousness. That's, you know, why would you ever want to worship it? Because you are it and it's part of you. And so that's ego self-adulation, really. So all you really have to do is give gratitude and respect and reverence for the source of all life, you know, which is Ishtan, which is the soul and spirit totems of the whole omniverse, which is a live, living organism, okay, in its full omniversal sense, that's infinite. And this language can't really describe the infinite too well, but we'll give it a good go anyway. And Ishtan basically is the grand mother that basically precedes Sophia in Gnosticism, which is a slight distortion, and also the Mother Mary concept of the Catholic Church is also appropriated from that original Ishtan knowing. Okay, and Ishtan itself, the first part of the word Ish, as you breathe in, the sound of the breath breathing in, which is like the sound of the waves, you know, like the water coming back from a shore, whether it's a little wave or a big wave. There's lots of different dynamics and timbral textures of it. It's the sound of that water coming back and then forming into a wave again and then crashing against the shore. And as it crashes against the shore, Ishtan, and you just hear it in your breath. And you breathe it right from your core, right from your umbilical cord, connecting with the grandmother herself, which is our real home. That's our real mother, you know, on a soul sense. And a lot of us have been missing that sort of real mother for a while. But that 10 part of the Ishtan, the Ish is feminine and the 10 is masculine. So it's equally balanced. So that should establish the core for what I'm going to explain further when it comes to the Kabbalah sort of distortion and perversion and manipulation of this original law, okay, this original Magyar law, which is the Magyar language, which delivers this source consciousness, okay? It's a language that delivers this source consciousness within ourselves, because we are energy and our bodies are like circuit boards. And once you know that, and that we're designed, you know, our genetic design denotes its real functionality, okay? So the functionality of our bodies is really to be, while we're here on Earth, as it is our home, we are the custodians. We have to do the energy work on a metaphysical and physical level, connecting our organic technologies in our bodies with the primary elemental omniversal forces of nature. So this gets into some pretty powerful stuff. But to get connection to this, you have to piss off all the bullshit sort of ego narcissism of this program by matrix, okay? You've got to piss off all that bullshit in your personality, and we all get programmed with it, okay? And then you've got to eliminate all forms of fear so you can be in a fluid, consciously intelligent sort of mode in the zone, so you can actually do this work properly, so it is effortlessly simple, which it is, even though there's a lot of deep comprehensions behind it all. But once you get it in the feeling, you just know it. It's like when you do too much thinking without sort of connection to the source consciousness in your gut, your navel, solar plexus, that's when too much thinking becomes literally the alien, the imposter. And that's what the Draco have basically designed, this trauma-based mind control, to basically get humans to be in fear, okay? And it's psychological fear, manipulation of psychological fear, which really is an illusion, which is what we call Kaba in the original Magyar sort of root meaning. And it's spelt K-A with a dash over it, B-A. And what it means is under illusion and or drugged, okay? So anything is Kaba, is fiction. It's not real. It's an inorganic overlay. It's a perversion of the law, so to speak, L-O-R-E.
Let me just intersect there, Gaz. When you're talking about the Kaaba, you know, there's a Kaaba in Mecca that the Muslims worship. How is that connected to this illusion?
Because basically what they're doing is that Dr. Phil Valentine does a brilliant video explaining this in the sense of, it's called the Cosmic Codex, and he explains how all the 5 main religions and spiritualities, Judaism, Judeo-Christianity, Islam, Buddhism and Hindu, are all sound-coded to Kabbalah and Saturn worship. So basically all their prayer energy they're giving away from their soul when they believe in this sort of stuff and their doctrines, it's actually providing the manifestation for the future that the New World Order want, okay?
Is that connected to Saturn?
Yes, it is.
Right, because on North Pole of Saturn, we have that hexagon, and if you take the hexagon, flatten it out, or a hexagon is a flattened out cube. Right?
Oh, yeah.
And then when we look at, you know, the main religions, the Abrahamic religions, they all seem to be in the worship to the cube, right? Because in Islam, they have the Kaaba in Mecca. The cross, the Christian cross, is a geometrical cube, and then when we look at Judaism, they wear the Teflon on their third eye, which in itself is a black cube.
Yeah, they sometimes wear it on their wrists as well and stuff like that. And well, the thing is that straight away we can see, if you want the original meanings of words, you go to the Magyar language, because that precedes all other languages, okay, on Earth. Okay, so in order to basically unveil all of their distorted meanings of original symbols and words and things like that that they've satanically inverted, what we actually do, we go back and find the original sort of keyword meanings, root meanings, okay, like I've just done here. Now, Kaaba is a real key critical mass sort of creation, sort of core meaning. in the sense of it defines what it actually means. It's basically saying it's rubbish, okay? And they've turned that meaning of under illusion or being drugged under a spell into this cover cube meaning, okay? And they've turned it into something sort of holy where it's actually the opposite. The opposite is true. So in order to decode a lot of this stuff, all it takes is basic reverse child psychology, really, because you've got a bunch of belligerent children basically playing with toys that just, you know, they're just not capable of controlling because they do not have the conscious intelligence to do so because they're not rooted to their soul. They've made soul contracts with Dracos and all that sort of stuff to give that property away, and that property is not theirs to be bought and sold. You know, that property is of the original creation, and that's why when we're dealing with a human, even a hybrid, even with the elites, well, somehow we've got to work out how to release that soul so it can go back home. As for the rest of the genetic distortion and stuff like that, well, that can go back to the dirt, but the soul is really important. When it comes to these Dracos that are soulless and disincarnate, and they need to feed off us, of this energy, but it's too pure for them from here, okay? So they trick us into giving it to them in step-down sort of forms, okay, on more of an electromagnetic sort of level, okay? And so they manipulate things from that step-down sort of form. So in order to solve any problem, you can't solve that problem on the level that that problem exists. You need to go to the level before in order to heal it. So we go to the core source level. And once we do that and we work out how to center again, it's like literally the Dracos can't do anything about it. So if everyone got centered, it's like we would all starve the Dracos and they'd just go. They'd starve. Okay? That's one solution. So if everyone learned how to center, and this is the thing, it's like this is the knowledge of the Magyar that they shared and educated people with so that they could literally be God connected, for lack of a better term, you know, from your soul. So you had no fucking middleman pastor in the fucking way, you know, pastor tending to their flock. So basically no other animals get to eat them except the shepherd. So this is the thing. We're being sort of, you know, human cattle farmed, you know, for a long time, and it's turned into one big sort of pathology container sort of eugenics sort of lab now, you know, in this sort of day and age. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah,
anyway,
I read a book. I forgot Don Juan. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Don Juan, but Don Juan said that you know, this force that's come out from space is rearing us for food as we rear chickens, but instead of eating, you know, physical food like we do, these guys are feeding off of our energy and our dense energy, which is created by fear and hate and loathing and things like that. And these guys really
that's what makes it tasty for them. The more they adrenalize us through sadistically torturing us, like a cat plays with the mouse before it basically eats it.
Yeah, that's kind of like androchrome too, right? And then that's all.
The adrenochrome is what they basically harvest from the back of the pineal by sticking a needle into the back there, okay, and extracting it. So one of the most, if not the most expensive sort of drug on the black market in the world, because it comes from literally like the trauma and fear of a ritual sacrifice victim, you know, before it's being sacrificed. So this is how they make it tasty. This is really sick stuff, but it has to be explained. You know, it's so horrible to fathom for most people. But I've been through it all. I was basically made to be in rituals as a young child. So I've been trying to make sense of all this stuff for, you know, all my life since, you know, in order to comprehend, understand the deep ritual science involved. That's basically all a perversion and manipulation of these original organic sort of, you know, sort of earth custodian sort of stuff turned into this sort of blood sacrifice sort of, you know, and all. It's just disgusting and degenerate and all the rest of it. It's just death cult stuff. And they've basically, the Dracos, what they do, they got a whole technology where they weaponize pain, even in their own Dracos and even in their own Illuminati sort of minions. They literally have a technology of weaponizing pain. And so the only way through this is to go to that level before and reverse all their curses back onto them. So literally the emperor has no clothes and there's nowhere to run and hide, no veils to hide behind it all anymore. We define all the original word meanings that basically strip and unveil all of their perverted sort of meanings that they've basically indoctrinated the world with now. Because as I keep on saying to everyone, it's like it's good, okay, all you intelligent people that can decode all their Illuminati stuff, but what you haven't done, which is the key thing missing, is these people are not soul conscious, intelligent enough to come up with these original things in the first place. They're master thieves and criminals, okay? And then they do their little sort of chicken dance all over the top of it and demonize it all. They take the original sort of Magyar stuff and demonize it all, and then everyone's too afraid to look into the shade to see where they've demonized it from. Because most people only look at a tree from the ground up, but really you need to dig down to the roots to have a see what's causing the root rot here, you know? And if you don't dig in there and get your hands dirty, well, you're never going to find out.
Yeah. Let me just rewind here a little bit. Can you explain to us a little bit more? I've never heard this before, the weaponization of pain.
Yes.
I'd like to understand that a little bit more. So can you explain that in a little bit more detail so that I can get a clearer picture on that?
What the Draco do is that they get their minions, okay, like Rothschilds and getting Zionism and Nazism being two sides of the same coin, you know, and basically butting heads, and basically the result favours the hidden third hand, you know, that's doing the Hegelian dialectic, you know. And so what they do is they basically get all of them to do all these sort of harebrained sort of eugenicide sort of experiments on humanity to get the data from analysing all sorts of different forms of human torture and pain thresholds and all of that sort of stuff. And then they get all that data, put it into AI and all the rest of it to work out the best ways to literally control people through trauma-based mind control and this pain, and then how to weaponize this pain amongst their Dracos that they put them through that literally makes them more powerful through this psychopathic sort of what I call a belief of denial. Okay, it's a constant belief of denial, like the Satanists. It's all about deny, deny, deny. Their whole blood oath sort of thing, never to reveal that they're a Freemason and stuff like that. They're forced to lie. So it's all about lying and denial to basically get their belligerent, fucking childish, what I call pre-tard daycare supervision sort of nonsense, you know, over the line. They're like belligerent sport children, like Lord of the Flies on steroids. So this is the mentality of what we're dealing with, and they're unconscionable. So you can't appeal to the good ethics and morals and nature of them because they don't have any, even though they're actors in the Matrix, pretending to be philanthropists to say, look at all this wonderful technology and what we're doing for the world. It's like the HARP stuff, you know. It's like in Australia, there was this Australian guy in this company, and he was giving the big spiel about how they actually had all of this sort of torsion field, atmospheric, ionosphere sort of technology to manipulate the weather to create good things for crops and this, that and the other. But unfortunately, this is the same tactic they use all the time. They put the philanthropic thing out on one hand, but on the other hand, they're basically being depraved sort of morons behind closed doors within their secret societies and stuff with this technology doing really horrible things to everyone and nature. And yes, the thing is, this snake eating its tail, you can see into the future once you sent it to the cause and the effect. If it keeps on doing it, that snake eating its tail will just eventually self-implode, okay, into creating its own black hole and literally sucking everything and everyone down with it and just destroying all of creation. And so I can see that. I can see that that's the long-term sort of thing if they keep on going down this path. So they're literally out of control, okay? They're mentally ill, okay? Even the Dracos. It's like, as smart as they are doing what they're doing, it's like they're literally on a one-way trip to hell, you know? They've like created hell in the process, but it's just diabolical. So we literally have to heal all the parts of the hybrids, of the Draco-human hybrid lines, because they all still have souls, okay? So this is where we've got to be careful, because as Magyars, we always want to do no harm wherever possible. But we're not naive at the same time, and we know what we're dealing with. And if things get hardcore, things get hardcore. Okay, if you've got to defend yourself in a situation of kill or be killed, well, it's quite obvious what you've got to do.
Hey, you
But
gotta fight. You gotta fight.
that's a last resort, you know,
Yeah.
because we want to take, you see the big picture, we want to bring back all of what's original nature back into its perfect creation, so then we can get on to what the intended perfect creation is. And when a man and woman join up together and they learn the law firsthand through their life experience, and they get to learn the law to a confident degree, well, then you can go off and create your own sort of universe together. It's a pretty good deal without being a deal. You know what I mean? That's what original life is about. You know, so they've turned that beautiful, beautiful creation, wondrous creation, into just like a total shitstorm, unfortunately. And Kabbalah is the main sort of metaphysical desecration and perversion of the original law that they've done it with. And this is where I'll get on to the fact that the Levite priests themselves, which are, they are the head of the language holders, well, they basically hide behind the legal system, where they are the silent bosses, the actual priests, sorcerers, that are actually higher up than the judges or magistrates. And hardly anyone knows this. Okay? And the Levite priests have what's called a Levite priest codebook. This is ultra, ultra secret. And me talking about this for years should have had me killed by now, but they got to keep me alive because they want to steal all my information that's coming through. It's a bit of a weird one. I'll get back onto that because I don't want to distract for now, but you get killed for saying this sort of information, talking about it, generally speaking. And they don't want to be culpable to it. So they'll find all sorts of backdoor ways through the shadows to basically fuck you up, you know, and make you look like a crazy man and everything without showing any physical culpability because they're too scared of coming near and showing any culpability. The fact that, hey, you know, an incident happens that goes wrong, well, then all of a sudden you're validating this crazy man's talk, you know. So this is why the most secret and deep ultra sort of stuff they deal with in very sort of underhanded sort of ways. Now, this Levite priest codebook is basically the confusion of the tongues math formula sort of codebook, okay, for all the confusion of the tongues math formulas. And how they did it was they got the Magyar language and they put it in the alphabet, the original symbols, into numerology, okay? Now, in the original Magyar language, there was a natural math already in the language, okay? Like you could sound out the numbers, but there were never any numerical digits, okay? Like 1, 2, 3, like numerical digits. Now, those numerical digits basically is how they created numerology, where they put the alphabet into the math. I had a meme from years ago that basically said, and Satan said, put the alphabet into the math. And it was just too deep for anyone to get at the time. But I was just taking the piss. And anyway, that's basically what happened, okay? So by putting it into numerical digits, it allowed them to give all the simple math codes for all the confused bums languages, as I take the piss out of it again. You've got to have a bit of humour here, otherwise you're just going to cry, you know, once you get to, you know. So basically speaking, that is how they confused the tongues, okay? And what they did was I revealed, how I confirmed this was I had a friend of mine in Melbourne who's now dead, and he was basically used against me as well, okay? This is what happens during these, when you get this sort of deep, you know, they will always try to take over contacts and people and do divide and conquer things, you know, between really good networked people that are getting good information and stuff like that, and isolate you. And anyway, I told him about this Magyar stuff. I met him sort of about 10 years ago, and he was attracted to my work. And then when I told him about all of his stuff, and I was in contact with Attila Flink at that stage, learning about all of his incredible knowledge and work that he'd done on the Australian sort of tribal languages here, and finding out that it was the same mother tongue as his own tongue. And basically speaking, then my friend came back to me and he said, yeah, he's fucking right. He started searching all these Mason archives and sort of hard to get insider sort of sources of information. And he even had underworld contacts and criminals and all sorts of things. Let's face it, criminals know more than academics. And so you got to go to where the information is. You know, if you want to be a real serious detective, you got to do the investigation work. And sometimes it gets very perilous. Some of these paths you go down to find out extremely important pieces of information. Now, he came back to me and he said, well, isn't this funny? He said, I found out that the oldest Buddhist texts that are really kept hidden and secret, that's all in Magyar language. And I said, oh, really? And I said, well, Attila was telling me something about the original Buddha, you know, sort of being of Magyar and something to do with the Bodhi tree and Budapest. And I wish I could remember the story properly. And then he sort of interjected and he said, well, Attila, you know, again, he's right, you know, because he said, I found out that the original Buddha was actually a Magyar prince. And I've only just had confirmation of that in recent times through the Avasura texts, okay, which is a lost sort of knowledge of Hungarian history that basically traces a certain period back in history on the time after the last significant portion of Moose sank, which was called Ataisis, okay, Ataisis, okay, which is where the Federation of Micronesia is now in the Pacific Ocean, okay? And when that all sunk, all the Magyars and Huns, basically the survivors, went through to the Americas and through Asia and further on to Africa, okay? But it does not mention the Australian connection, unfortunately, which I do know.
Did they also go to Easter Island? Because that's pretty close to the geographical area that you're talking about.
I don't know much about the Magyar connection there yet fully, but I know when you go ancient back enough that, yeah, there is a Magyar connection. There's a Magyar connection everywhere, really, because this is our original human affinity when it comes down to it. And see, this is the thing. In this day and age, the Dracos are manipulated over time, okay, that there's been a core sort of Magyar sort of affinity of it's a whole family of various tribes. It's not just white Magyars. There's many. There was sort of copper tone. There was red man, green man. And they've wiped all these tribes out now. And we just have the mix of what's left today. And what they've done is the original Magyar affinity, since Sumerian times at least, they were actually dark-skinned Hebrews, Habaru, which means those that murder with webs, that they were invited into to live in peace with other sort of in a multiracial situation living under the one law, and the Magyars were actually healing everyone together, going, you can believe whatever you want, but just live here in peace, respect the one law that you're under. So it was a multiracial civilization and not a multicultural one, because if you have a multicultural situation like the Zionists have done all over the world, well, not every culture treats every other culture equally. So you've got to have a one law that treats everyone sort of equally. And that law is the LORE, which is the history of everything, really. It's not that the LAW is just a component, you know, just one aspect of the LORE. And so even in fallen times, the Magyars would create these multiracial cities like Carthage, where they had Jews, Christians and Muslims, everyone living together in peace. And then the Romans came along and basically infected the place with cholera and killed 160,000 sort of Carthage people in 3 months, and hence they all had to basically bail. And Attila said they went off to Egypt after that, which is all about the Medjays and stuff that are actually Persian Mede-related Magyars, okay? And they were the start of the Egyptian civilization. And then after that, once they got chased out of basically Egypt up to the Caucasus and places like that, once it all got hijacked and taken over, well, then every other sort of Draco-human hybrid sort of tribe and other sort of taken over Magyar tribes would basically have their time in the sun being the Pharaonic dynasty. It's the same with the Buddha situation. You had your original Buddhas, but then you had all these other fake Buddhas afterwards, both black and white, set up by the Draco to create this racial polarization bullshit. Okay?
Kind of like the white Pope and the black Pope that we have today. Kind of the same thing where, you know, there's that division within.
Oh, yeah. And you know what? Yeah. And above the white Pope and the black Pope, there's actually a grey Pope. as well.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah,
There's something that we learned today.
Yeah, not many people do, actually. So it's like they've got all of these veils. The deeper you go into the secret societies, like with the Jesuits, they're basically in control of the Judeo-Christianity sort of controlled opposition. And then you've got the Levites at the top of the law profession, okay? And they're connected, you know, in the sort of government, state, religion, medicine, you know, it's all the sort of unholy sort of mountain of the three hills, so to speak, or unholy trinity. Well, it's not quite a trinity, there's four of them there. But basically, those three make up the government state. And basically speaking, you go back far enough into secret societies, mate, they're all in the same club.
Mm-hmm. When you were saying earlier, when the Magi went down to Egypt, are you talking about dynastic Egypt or pre-dynastic Egypt?
I think we're looking at a bit of both, actually.
See, I was wondering about pre-flood and after-flood. That's what I was kind of considering, you know, how far back does it go, you know?
Well, it's like, and how many floods have we had as well?
Right.
Because there's, okay, we've got the standard biblical flood. Okay, I know about the flood around 10,800 BC approximately, when literally the Dracos basically got this asteroid comet. There was an iron sort of based sort of things with other things. And they specifically strategically targeted at an Earth land point energy, happened to be Mount Meru, which is actually where Greenland is now. That's Hyperborea. And what it did was it did a big pole shift. That, and there was another asteroid sort of comet sort of thing that hit around where the Eye of the Sahara sort of area is as well.
Mm-hmm.
And this basically caused massive upheaval, okay, because my friend and colleague, sort of James Overton, he's a biological scientist. He can actually explain the science better than I can. But he basically said that, look, the North Pole, that used to be more in the Yukon area of Canada, got shifted up to the Arctic Sea. And in that sort of process, because of all of the ice that got left behind, and you actually see in geological sort of things that that area of America was actually a very cold sort of zone at one stage back in history, sort of icy and all the rest of it. Well, that all got shifted to basically where the North Pole is now. And basically speaking, everything got displaced, both north and south. And
that's because the whole Earth made a complete rotation, didn't it?
Well,
didn't the Earth kind of get tilted or tipped up?
It's like the orange peel got stretched and blah, yeah. And things got moved around, and they tried to do the New World Order back then, but they fucked up, because this is the thing. Every time they get close to their goal, their hubris, their insolent pride, especially in the key rituals and stuff like that, they just go crazy, out of control, and they lose their nerve and they fuck things up, because they get so sort of anxious and greedy, and you know, the whole everything. They're just so, you know, not grounded, you know. And
the orange that you're talking about, Gauze and Clarence, is that a reference to Emmanuel Voloski's Earth crust displacement?
It depends on what era you're talking. See, that's the whole thing behind that, and I'm trying to get a grasp on that particular theory, because you know, like God says, there's been so many different floods and different ice ages and stuff we've had, you know, over
reset periods.
millennial.
And I actually have some clarity on this, because they have time travel technology, and they kicked that off in 1913, according to my research. Okay, because all you have to do. We got the Stargate right here. See where my mohawk is? That's the center line, okay? And there's the fisheye. And the fisheye there is a vertical Stargate, not like an angel sort of horizontal one, which is a ring of servitude, bondage, and slavery, which the circumcision thing is all about as well. That connects to the Saturn ring, and yeah, it's disgusting. Okay, the actual real energetic equator of the planet, or I should say, the body of the Earth, I don't like to call it plane or planet, because that's another polarization sort of war, because it is actually a body, okay, if not bodies. And the thing is that how they've really tricked us with one subtle thing, so we can't do proper dreaming. When we center, we then have to basically portal connect with our Stargate here to the next sort of center realm, which is the body of the earth. Okay, so you got to connect with the center. Here's the center line of our body, and our center is actually here. Your belly button literally is the center of your body. Okay, between your toes and your top of your head, your crown. And so you have to connect your center with the actual real center of the body of the earth, and that is actually vertical and not horizontal. Now it gets better.
Really?
Yep, it's better. So when the Dracos basically did that iron comet, it magnetically polarized everything to magnetic north. But real north is actually above your head, and real south is actually below your feet. Okay? So this is how much they've subtly but vastly deceived us. So then, okay, when you connect the actual, your center with the body center of the earth being the horizontal sort of equator line that's not physical, it's energetic, okay? Then you connect it to the center of our galaxy, which is the Milky Way, okay? And then there's a way that you can do that, again, through here. And we can do that through our fisheye, which is much better, and you get full access to everything than your third eye. Because the third eye, the Dracos have got technology going on that I've tested. My old mate Stanley, who's now dead, he was a really good remote viewer, and I tested his remote viewing, and he was open to it. And when he basically remote viewed the original Babel over Central Australia, okay, we both worked it out, okay, through a variety of ways that I'll get into. He gave me a description of it all, and then he told me all this stuff, and I said, is that all you can see? And he said, yeah. And I said, you need to go back further. You need to go back further when it was all trees. You know? And he said, I can't get there. I can't get there. And I said, that's okay. It's okay, because you've basically confirmed what I've been suspecting for ages, is that the Draco have got a hold. When you go through the third eye, they separate it with black lines, black and white lines between all the dimensions, all the colours, okay? And while black and white is there, it's not meant, that's another perversion. It's not meant to be sort of separating every dimension, because through the fisheye, everything is just a blending sort of realm.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like everything interconnects, but there's no like separation between any of it. And that's the whole thing about Kabbalah. It's all this cut circle, cut sort of decompartmentalized sort of stuff that's all about separation, rather than thinking, well, even though we're in physical separation here, we're still energetically interconnected with everything, because that's how everything works.
Yeah.
And so to know all life, you've got to see into the interconnectedness of the fabric of all life, and then you've got it down. And so this is the thing. So what they've done is build all these sacred geometry cities that stop people from doing real dreaming actually in the Milky Way and beyond, because then you can go to other realms beyond the Milky Way. That's just this galaxy. So this is what they've done. They've put this block on the Earth sort of center, so no one can really travel, and everyone has to go through this controlled sort of third eye sort of realm. Mm-hmm. But when you go through the fisheye, you get full access. And not only that, what goes on in here can't see what's going on up here.
The right hand can't see what the left hand is doing, and the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing.
Oh, exactly. That's duality for you. And not only Kabbalah splits the wholeness of the original organism, that which we know is equal masculine and feminine, into duality. Okay, that's a distortion. That's a bipolar distortion. That literally creates schizophrenia, for fuck's sake. So then they reverse polarize the duality and make the good the bad and the bad the good. The male the female the male. And that's in the image of the Draco mentality. That's all fear-driven, fucking paranoid, fucking sadistic fucking crap.
And that's what they're doing right now.
Yeah.
They're carrying that out right now as we speak. That the good is the bad, bad is the good, a girl is a boy, and a boy is a girl. That's kind of what they're doing.
And this is what this belief of fear-driven denial does. And it comes from the Draco. And one of the people that really seemed to have a good conscious sort of comprehension of the Draco sort of mindset, I found when I was learning about this, was over 10 years ago from Stuart Swerdlow's work. But then I found some of his stuff on mind control and Dracos and stuff like that's some really good information, but there was some other sort of areas I found lacking, but it's the same with everyone out there. So I'm grateful for, basically what I got to learn. But as usual, I have gratitude for, I learn off the best of the best when I'm looking for validation of what I essentially already know in here. I'm just looking for the language and the ways to describe it, because literally all the information is in you, because your body is a omniversal microcosm of the greater omniversal macrocosm. So it makes sense to know yourself first, know your body circuitry and all the rest of it, like an electrician knows his gear.
Yeah, so, I like to know your car.
Yeah, so you know how to connect to the rest of nature that is to you. And literally, we're the ones controlling the stars and the planets and everything, and they're manipulating us as sort of antennas and sort of source batteries to do that on the physical. This is why the physical is important. And then we must have sovereignness of our physical beings in order to do all this wonderful, infinite sort of metaphysical stuff.
So is it working like so below as above? So whatever is happening down here in the below in the physical plane is, having an effect on the above, right? So below is above. So whatever's happening down here, if we're full of hate down here, then there'll be hate up there. But if we're full of love down here, there'll be love up there.
Yeah, you're right. Because amongst all the Draco ET sort of rubbish that's going on out there, they're all fighting to be top dog amongst themselves as well. It's stupid. So the real sort of ancestors, as far as ETs are concerned, actually connecting to them, the only safe way to do it is through here.
Yeah.
And they're not going to talk to you telepathically. They're actually going to talk to you in that instinct language, and you got to comprehend.
Is that the energy? Is that the energy language that you're talking about as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
See, the thing is that since I was 19 and a half, when I was 19 and a half, I kind of went, I don't like this programmed person I've become here. I'm not confident. I'm sort of in fear. I just did an honest evaluation of myself after I finished school, after I was made to be at school for another 2 years, and I left school late. And anyway, I kind of went, this sucks. I'm going to deprogram and unlearn everything till I get back to whatever the fuck my core essence is, and then I'm going to go out from there. Now, I did that at 19 and a half, and literally all I did was consciously map the language of instinct for over the last 30 years, while everyone else has been sort of caught up in this non-grounded, centered third eye stuff. It's okay to do third eye stuff if you're centered first, okay? It's not the most best way to do things. At least you're centered and you've got control of this sort of realm. But if you're not centered, you are open to manipulation like anything, okay? So while everyone's been sort of wanking with their third eyes and being shown all this mystical, supernatural tricks by sort of Dracos with pigs on lipstick and all this sort of stuff, there's no shortcuts to sort of ascension, to real, I don't even like the word ascension, to real sort of core soul instinctual knowingness. There's no shortcuts at all. You've got to work it out yourself and the information inside yourself. Finding out how this car engine works again, how this technology works. And once you realize that, the rest is a fucking distraction.
Yeah, that's the key word there, technology, because this human, I call it, ABC, Avatar Body Computer. And this has to be the most advanced piece of machinery that we know of.
Exactly. And what is ridiculous, all technology outside of us comes from us.
Yeah, exactly.
Everything's modeled on us and the best things in nature. When you look at the best military designs and stuff like that, it's modeled off this animal or that animal or us, or literally, if you have a look at a Mayan sort of big sort of pyramid sort of complex in its whole sort of thing, it literally looks like a circuit board of a computer. Now, where did they get that from? Us. Because literally our organs are what we're meant to play music through. Now, me as a male, I play the sub in the song line that holds the root of the frequency, okay? And I can do it either in the language, or I can just basically pulse that intention straight through it. You're playing your internal didgeridoo. Now, didgeridoo in Magyar means droned monotonal sound. Okay, that's where they get didgeridoo from. So you're playing your own internal didgeridoo. You're playing your own organs. You're playing music through your organs. Why do they call organ pipes? What's that all based off? This.
Yeah, that's very cool that you just said that, because yesterday I watched a video from Chris Blackmore. I don't know if you know him, but I'm pretty sure Chris Blackmore. Yeah, and he was doing the didgeridoo, with his mouth and through his stomach, and
so he's tapping his mouth.
It's just amazing. And then then now you're talking about this, and I'm thinking about that too, and I was like, wow, that's pretty cool.
I didn't even know Chris had tapped into that stuff. It doesn't surprise me because he's on the same sort of wavelength, for lack of a better term, than us. And as I've been a musician all my life. Music has always come easy to me. It's been a gift, okay? So what I noticed is that within all this program clock time, if you really want to understand the nature of the waves of how everything moves in really no time, have a look on your software programs in Cubase or Logic or Pro Tools or whatever it is that you use, and start looking at the waves. And notice that when you've got waves, when you're using all this digital stuff and plugins and limiters and compressors and all that sort of stuff, if you've got waves that are spiking like that, they're too over-angular and masculinized. They're polarized. But when you've got waves that are nice and thick and sort of got curvature, like as Thoth said, seek ye in curves, that's how you balance the primary shapes, feminine and masculine being the line, okay? Just look at a indigenous tree, like an original sort of organic tree. It all moves in curves. There's never totally a straight line, never totally a perfect circle. It's all equal, okay? But unfortunately, the Dracos have fucked up nature as well and created their own hybrid sort of plants and animals and all the rest of it. We can get into that because that's a whole other topic by itself that can take on.
I was just thinking that. I was like, wow, that's a deep rabbit hole, because I've got 10,000 thoughts on that as soon as you mentioned it.
and that guy, Steve Irwin, he noticed that. He was tapping into that, and he was noticing all these hybrid sort of animals and species.
Oh, you're talking about Steve Irwin. He was the that Australian
hunter.
Oh, yeah.
Hunter, right? And he got killed by that stingray. Oh,
yeah,
I like that guy. Pucky was cool.
I can tell you straight away, the Illuminati sorcerers have the ability to use their soul totem stuff in a maligned way to get inside the spirit of animals, like a stingray, to actually go and attack someone.
Really?
There is a science behind this stuff. And it's like, I don't know what happened. There was a video that I almost got my hands on back in 2006 that showed actually what happened, because I wanted to know. But I was right into Steve Irwin because I knew that this guy was onto it. Regardless of his larrikin image, he was so naturally intelligent. It was just...
He was amazing. I loved him.
Yeah. He was fearless. He was so naturally centered. It was just like incredible.
His energy was just incredible, right? It was just incredible, his energy. I could feel his energy every time I seen him on TV. Now, when he comes on TV, I stop and I watch him, I get goosebumps, and even like check that out. Just like talking about him gives me goosebumps, because his energy was just so intense and pure, right? That's what I liked about him.
Exactly. And so anyone like that, if you're a natural sort of person, you're an original Magyar soul, you can spring out anywhere, because see, this is the thing. Even
that's where animal communication comes in, guys.
Oh yeah, big time. Because I'll give you an example. Attila Flink, who I learnt all this Magyar language stuff of, and he was literally the best linguist of our time. He was just a genius, incredible. I can't stop shutting up about him in that sort of regard. But I don't give compliments unless they're actually deserved. Otherwise, I don't give compliments anyway, because I'm not into sort of unnecessary self-adulation and giving people compliments. Because if you give people compliments when they don't deserve it, it's a form of manipulation. So this is how, the Zionist sort of thing works. I know it through the Voice to Skull stuff. When they basically tried to infiltrate into you, they basically pump up your ego, to get inside, and then they bring you down from there. So if you don't let them in the first place, in any of their sort of duality, sort of polarized mechanisms with psychology, they don't have a chance.
Is this Attila Flink that you're talking about, Gus?
Yes. Attila Flink, he literally had an affinity with birds. He could talk to the birds because he discovered the magic in the language. And although he didn't know metaphysics that I did, because I'd studied metaphysics for 20 years, it was my pet love before I met Attila. And the more I learned about this language and everything, it was bringing back past life memories, rituals, memories as a child where I had a Magyar reference too that was memory wiped from me. Oh, my goodness. The more I got into this language, I started having past life memories and information come back. And what this language did for me was just incredible in what it triggered out of me. And I noticed that Attila, he just was an incredible natural scientist in the sense of he understood all of this stuff and the magic of the language. And like he was brought up a Catholic and that and colonized Hungary and all the rest of it. And the Vatican were always trying to put a guilt trip on him to stop him to do his research work and things like that through many different agents, you know, through his life. And he just like had the biggest passion for this language and everything. And to the point, he could literally talk to birds. And one day I came home to my house here and literally he was in his he had a yellow 1976 VW combi van, okay? Classic. Yeah. And he was sitting in the front seat of that waiting for me, you know, just parked outside my house. And he literally had 10 cockatoos all along his roof and the window. And he was just sitting in his car and he was basically talking with them and playing with them. And they were all just there, just happy to be there with him and everything. And I just saw this from afar as I was walking towards my house. And I went, this is incredible. And so I took a few photos. You know, I've just gone, I've never seen anything like this. And I've actually got those photos and I'll post them to you. And this is the thing. Then you get to the whistling Canary language in the Canary Islands. That's connected to this as well. And then you've got anthropologists that basically were in awe that studied the original Tasmanians more in the sort of the late sort of 18th and early 19th century, okay, where they said listening to the Tasmanians was literally like listening to heavenly, ethereal singing like birds.
Wow.
Attila said that the Tasmanians were actually speaking the original language without a scratch on it because that no one had touched that language there, them being cut off.
Preserved, eh? Wow, that's cool.
Okay, so that's why they genocide the fucking lot of them, unfortunately. And in the official history, they say it was about only a few thousand, but Attila found out that it was at least 500,000. And he spent a lot of time. He spent a lot of time studying on Tasmania to the point that one day a Vatican priest, a Jesuit priest, said to him, okay, continue what you're doing with your other language work in Australia, but stay away from the Tasmanian stuff. He was told a firm directive. Like ASIO stole his work in the early 70s. He came home one day and all his work was missing. 3 weeks later, he comes back from work because he was a builder by trade. And then there were these two men in suits, black suits, sitting at his kitchen table, and he could see in the suits, you know, that they had guns inside the suit.
No shit, holy fuck.
And literally next to his kitchen table, there was literally a big stack, neatly stacked up of all his work, and they'd brought his work back and they'd copied the lot of it.
Huh.
Okay, and they gave it back to him and they basically gave him a warning saying, well, don't think about being a revolutionary or anything like that. You know, it's like if you just basically stay to your study and you don't start blabbing in public to people about all this stuff, you're going to be all right. But if you do, there's going to be problems.
Is that like, those guys in the black suits, would they be somehow connected or be part of the Men in Black?
I have no idea. I can only describe to you the actual agents as Attila described them, and he told me that they were ASIO. So who knows? They could have been Men in Black.
Yeah.
But that's in Australia?
Yeah, that was in Sydney, Australia, yes.
In Sydney, okay, yeah.
And Sydney is a satanic town, okay? And a lot of the New World Order operations actually get carried out from here, because what people have got to understand, what happens in the world first? Well, the sun hits the world in the east. I think the easternmost sort of point is sort of like, okay, they do it in the time thing in New Zealand, but the easternmost part of Australia is actually Lion Island, which is just near Carryong. Now, Lion Island is actually an old sphinx, okay? And that Lion Island is in direct mathematical proportion to the Carryong site, glyph site, as the same thing on the same sort of latitudinal line, equator line, that goes straight through to Egypt, where Giza is, and the Giza Sphinx. It's the same proportions and distance. And
I heard somebody else say that too. I think it was Evan or Stephen Strong, one of the two, or maybe it was both of them said exactly the same thing.
I've been in contact with both of those guys and allaying a lot of this information with them as well. And they're facilitators of a lot of people's information as well. So they're very much in the know with this stuff.
Yeah.
And I've actually met a shaman that spent years studying everything at that whole Carryong site and the whole area and everything. And he knows, look, I have to say, he knows better than most sort of tribal folk that are left here, in the sense of he's actually learnt all this stuff. And because he's a white man, most of them won't listen to him. And the sad fact is, in what I've worked out, is that there's not many original tribal members left from the Magyar tribes here, because they got genocided first. And the tribes that actually came down here that were more sort of Nugger and Dravidian and sort of Draco-human hybrid in sort of origin, they came down here to stir up a lot of trouble initially, and they polarised with the dark-skinned Magyar tribes to create problems against the light-skinned tribes, so they could actually do a divide and conquer thing that I reckon that was planned from Council of Nicaea times, to basically clear out of here all the light-skinned sort of tribes. So then eventually with the later colonisations, they could actually create the better sort of white versus black sort of racial polarisation that they've done all throughout history, when they literally get the black and the white people to constantly turn on each other all the time, you know, with different ruling tyrant sort of things. And people need to see that on a soul level, we're all one anyway, and that genetics, we're all in these cartoon sort of skin suits compared to what our original sort of bodies are anyway, but we can still do this amazing sort of magic even in these. We can overcome the genetic distortion by returning home to our soul. It's our soul is the one that governs all of it. So once you become your true sovereign sort of soul governor from your centre, well, that's it. None of these people can infiltrate you, and you can do what your body was designed to do here, and that is be a true earth custodian.
Well, spirituality don't know color anyway, so that's how that works.
Well, that's right, because originally in Vilatonga, getting back to the original Magyar soul home, we were all clear like cetacean-like fish beings. And all the colour was in our soul. Exactly, brother.
Yep.
It was all the colour was in the feeling. That's what it comes back down to, even in music. It's
is that where our aura comes from? Like, you know how our aura, our Taurus has the, our energetic field has a color, right? So I'm wondering if that's...
All I can say is logically it emanates from the soul, because that's our real battery, you know, just in simple, you know. And that soul, why do you think it's called the solar plexus?
Yeah, I never thought about that before. Very, very good point.
That's where your sun energy is coming through. That's where your source consciousness is coming through. And deep in the sun is a portal, okay? And that portal is to the greater sort of conscious intelligence, that be which is Ishtar. And you can connect that to the sun, and that sun needs all your help at the moment. And everyone can pulse the sun and take out all their equipment. I shouldn't be saying this, but it's got to be said, because all my deep knowledge, if I don't share all of it, so everybody can have the same access to the same consciousness, everyone has the same opportunity, that's the only time that we're going to have a really true and free sovereign world again, where everyone is on an equal footing with access to the same level of original consciousness. And that's That's not apparent on this planet. And the thing is that the pervarchy, okay, as James and I call them, okay, they basically have structured it. Well, the Dracos have fooled the Illuminati into thinking, okay, if you want to know about the secrets and the mysteries of the universe, you've got to become a Freemason and go through all of that. And Freemasonry is just their cherry-picking process to see which ones they can put into the evil leadership roles, because not everyone that joins Freemasonry is an arsehole. There are actually good people that go in there thinking, okay, I want to learn about life and secrets of the metaphysics and the universe, but they get taught all the wrong Kabbalah polarized stuff. It's a trap. And the deeper that you go into it, the more embedded in reptoid layers your soul and aura becomes. And this is why I've always gone, no. All the metaphysical systems that are all Kabbalah run, there was only a couple of places where I could find some clues of the real stuff. Otherwise, the rest I had to work out myself. I had to work out this original system going, hold it, all these metaphysics, this is all shit. It's wrong. I don't know why it's wrong, but it's all fucking wrong. So let's find out why it's fucking wrong, because my guts just don't sit with it. So I spent over 30 years consciously mapping this realm of my unconscious. And I have to say that I met Samuel Sagan of the Clair Vision School back in the 90s, and I learned some techniques of him personally. And the way he described things, like saying, well, what this school is about is mapping the consciousness of the unconscious realm. But he was thinking of the upper sort of dimensions and third eye stuff, and he'd learned all this Vedic stuff. And he actually did a doctorate in medicine presenting all this third eye stuff. And he actually got like a distinction in allopathic medicine. Like, this is how clever the guy was. And after he did his doctorate degree in medicine, he went and started a spiritual school. And unfortunately, the New World Order have basically based a lot of their stuff off his work. I don't know whether they programmed him or did whatever. Who knows what happens to people and rituals when you're younger, like what happened to me and all the rest of it. But basically, and he said that he was only going to be around for a short time because he died at the age of 57, only back in 2016 when he was still in his 50s. And it's
so young.
Yeah. And then I discovered in 2013, or maybe a little earlier, with a female friend of mine, Ivana, we discovered all this stuff. We tapped into this website on the net that literally had it was like a Rockefeller Foundation site, and it had all this information, and it was all Samuel Sagan's work and stuff. And we've quickly worked out, oh, fuck, they're using this whole fucking model to do their shit. And
I guess I'm going to have to tell YouTube that there's some language in this video.
Yeah, sorry, man. I'm raw. I'm as raw as you get.
I love it, man. I love it. Yeah,
I grew up in Australia in the most non-politically correct, racist sort of environment where everyone took the piss out of each other. And as a part of the mateship in Australia, when you're really close with mates, you would take the piss out of each other. You call each other wogs and wops and gabbos. Everyone was a racist fuckwit, like in the sense that this is the culture you're brought up in, but there was no political correctness. But there was an endearing sort of thing that if you really knew someone well and you could take the piss out of each other without getting offended because you knew each other and you just have a good laugh, you know?
Yeah.
Taking the piss out of yourselves and each other.
It's like when I do the same thing with my bro. He'll message me or I'll message him, and I'll call him something, right? I'll give him an insult, and then he'll just laugh, call me back, and then call me something even worse, and we'll sit there and we'll laugh about it and carry on.
Exactly. Now, it's good you brought that up, Imo, because I actually had an email contact with this dude that exposed all this huge Freemason sort of stuff that he'd been part of, and he became Christian. I'm not going to say his name at the moment. It's not important. But he said to me in the email back to me, he said, dude, I can appreciate where you're coming from and all that sort of stuff and sharing your ritual information, what you've been through and stuff. But he said, your language, mate. And he said, you got to stop cussing. And my answer to that is, well, sorry, the language you're talking is a total desecration of the law anyway in the first place, and you don't even fucking know it. So what's
Yeah, exactly.
shit's
Just
in the way.
keeping it real. Yeah.
Yeah, keeping it real, man.
And I'll tell you something that'll bring the fucking house down here, showing
Yeah.
that some things never change. Now, there's an old Magyar word. It's called midge, right? And I tested someone on this online, this sort of redneck sort of tribal dude from up sort of Northern Territory way. And on one of my posts in Forgotten Origin, he tried to test me. And what he was doing, he was trying to basically outmaneuver me on the Hungarian language, but I knew he was using Google Translate, which is all cooked and it doesn't have the old word meanings in it anyway, on purpose, okay? Because they don't want people to know these old words. So I literally put this word in there knowing that he wasn't going to find it, just to see, okay, if he knows this word, then he actually knows something of the old language. And he failed, and I called him out. Now, no one actually worked out what it meant, and now I'm going to say what it actually means, because I was going to say it on the webinar that we talked, you know, with RA Ancestry, but I forgot to put it in. I only had a limited amount of talk and all the rest of it. But I'm going to say it now.
That was at chapter 10 about a month and a half ago, because we're going into chapter 12 here in about a week or so.
That's
so yeah,
correct.
about 2 months ago that was, yeah.
Okay, and now I'm going to give this example that will bring the house down, and they'll know that this is 100% truth after I basically delivered this information. Now, Attila noticed all around Australia that the Aboriginal, I don't like using that word, that the tribal men used to always call the sandflies and sometimes the mosquitoes this word midge. And he'd be sitting in the library, in the Mitchell Library, in the special reading archive room, which is usually reserved for only high academics and stuff like that get clearance to it, is you're getting access to like a mini Vatican sort of library that even libraries in the Northern Hemisphere don't have the information that's in this special reading archive room in the Mitchell Library. It literally is quite unique. And many scholars have actually said that. Wow, Australia's got some hidden knowledge down there in a couple of libraries, and there in the ANU library and stuff like that. And indeed it does. And Attila went through all the colonial records looking for evidence of his language. Oh, my goodness, what he found was just incredible. Now, back to me. He noticed that these tribal men everywhere were calling this slang word midge, you know, talk about all the sandflies and mosquitoes. Now, what do you reckon as slang they were actually saying? What were they calling them? What we would call them in English today, because nothing's changed, basically, is what I'm about to say. You know, like what do you call a pest sometimes when, you know, sandfly bites you or mosquito and you,
fuck. That's what I say.
What do you call it?
Sucker. Something like that.
What would you call them in like a real derogatory sort of male sort of way?
I don't know. I'd be like,
what's the most common swear word in Australia in particular?
That would be, I believe, cunt.
Yes, you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
You bloody bastard.
So he'd be like in the library, you know, it's all quiet and stuff, and he'd be coming across his stuff. He'd just start bursting out laughing, and everyone around him just thinks he's a fucking nutcase. You know? Because he's the only one that can understand the language that all these colonists have, you know, he was such a genius, he found a pattern to the mistakes in the translation when they butchered it into English. And once he learned English properly, he saw a pattern to all the names of suburbs and streets and things like that. And it all started making sense to him. And so he could read through all the mistakes, and he was finding out what the tribal people were actually really saying in conversation that the British never understood unless they were part of the top brass that knew it was all Hungarian, but they weren't telling the lower level London Missionary Society linguists that will come here to do the linguistic work. They didn't tell them that the key was Hungarian language, and then they could have translated it all properly. It was in William Dampier's journals, in one of his early journals when he came here before the British sent him back here in a shitty ship, okay, to basically circumnavigate the East Coast 80 years before Cook. But by the time he got to the top of Ugar, Australia, the ship was full of worms and he had to go back. And then it took the British another 80 years to send down Cook to do the final invasion. And it was an invasion. Okay? But this is the thing, right across the country, you know, men would call the sandflies cunts, midgets. Now, what's even funnier, look at the word now, midget in English.
Oh yeah, midget is you know a midget.
Yeah.
Yeah, but midge.
So you can see the English going, okay, these midgets are little cunts. Okay, so we're going to give them this word midget that means little person, but it's based on the original Magyar word for cunt.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I'm not saying that this is necessarily ethical or correct or anything like that. I'm just telling you what's happening.
It doesn't matter what's ethical and what's not, as long as the information is pure. That's all that matters.
These are the secret meanings behind the English language words that these pervarky sort of dead piece of wood sort of linguist sort of castrated priests. This is their sense of humour that they have between themselves, going, I can see it. And a root word for this, and then they'll use it for this meaning, and they'll never know that they're actually talking about this. This is how their brain is. I'm getting inside their mentality for you. This is how they operate. They're sick.
It's like a cruel joke. Oh, yeah. Man, I'm not going to get that midget out of my mind now. Next time I see somebody, I'm going to say, you fucking midget.
Look at it. They even take the piss out of the fucking Khazarian fucking dwarves in Lord of the Rings.
Really?
Well, yeah, look at them. They're literally calling their own fucking midgets because behind closed doors, when they're being sort of all endocrine disrupted with each other, okay, they don't like it when we call them out on things, but behind closed doors, they love calling themselves depraved names and things like that. They love it. They love that literally being in shit. Like, look at the Jesuit symbol. You've got the cross, okay?
Yeah.
And then IHS. Now spell it backwards.
His.
No.
Okay, we got
the cross. Yeah, you just said it, Clarence.
Shit.
They love their shit.
Yeah.
Let me pull that up.
They're off on the shit. They're sexually depraved. Like Hitler was right into being a scatter. He was right into scat. Now, according to Greg Hallett's information, and I reckon he's accurate on this stuff because the world runs on shame. He's got the psychology right down. Regardless of this sort of king claim shit that he's done recently, okay, I think that's another sort of issue. And he's gone the wrong way about doing things, in my opinion, because what we need to do is we need to create a regency command to take over everything that's royal so we can establish what are the original sort of royal bloodlines from the tribe of Dan and other sort of places so we can find out the original core tribes and the people that are involved with helping with earth custodian work. That's what the real royal family is about, custodian work. And they work their asses off, not sitting around like lazy fucks living off the fat of the lamb of the people. Like this fake royalty is now, Draco royalty, that they think they have the right to rule because they've basically fucked into the original Jesus bloodlines, which is actually Izu. It's not Jesus. Yesu, that's Greek. Confused tongue. Sorry, push it away. Go back to the original. Izu. And then they basically take the original sort of Hungarian history, Magyar history, and they cleverly make Islam all sort of, it was all done by sort of satanic Jewish people, using a lot of the real Hungarian history, because you'll find in the Islam stuff is the closest to the real name of Jesus being Izu, I-double-Z-U, and they spell it like Isu, double S-U, or Issa, okay? So, yeah, I know all the mechanics behind all of their crap. There's details, you know, more details, because there's so much shit.
Here's a question for you guys. Maybe you can answer this. It's coming from Matt Gomez on our YouTube channel. Says,
Sure.
I wonder of the origins of the F-bomb word. So he wants to know the origin of the word fuck. Now, from what I understand, the word fuck is an acronym for, it's like a military thing when the British were in India and the British soldiers were having sex with the Indian women and getting them pregnant, and the king didn't like it, so he created a criminal charge which was for unlawful carnal knowledge. Now, I may be wrong on that, but maybe you can enlighten me on that, Gauze.
Well, that actually that resonates as along the lines that it actually sounds true, because literally the word shit is an acronym as well for ships holding in transport, okay? And where that comes from is actually when they used to take manure in the old sailing boats, a few hundred years ago, they'd take manure from one country to another, but then the methane gas would sometimes explode on the ships in transport.
Yeah.
So literally, they would be having this manure taking on the ship, and the ships would be holding in transport all this manure. And so that's how this manure got the acronym shit. So, yeah.
Wow.
I'm just learning some pretty hardcore shit today. That's
Yeah.
right.
So what he's saying about the acronym of fuck, I actually haven't heard of that myself, but you know what? It sounds absolutely true, because I've looked at fuck, I've looked to decode the actual word, and I've even looked at it backwards, going like kuf and things like that. You sometimes find these words in Hebrew, in English, and even Magyar as well.
Mm-hmm.
There's all sorts of strange sort of trapdoors. I was doing some massive decoding work 3 years ago in 2018, and I was really doing because I know all the dialect keys that I learnt off Attila Flink and other further dialect keys I worked after that once I got the sensibility. There's interchangeable vowels and interchangeable consonants that you can use between dialect, because different land entities on Earth will literally bring out different informations, have different sort of environmental effects that affect the dialect in the sense of the climate, and also the consciousness of the people at the time in what's the ruling forces, or whether it's an oppressive sort of place or whether it's actually a place of, peace and sort of freedom and emancipation. And so that all those factors have effect on dialect. It's a very deep science. And dialect is basically the same language. It's like in English today. You can have a real bogan Australian accent that even gets worse than the one that I'm speaking in at the moment, okay? Hey, you going, mate? Did you understand what I said?
I have no idea what you just said, man.
I said, how are you going, mate?
Say that again.
How you going, mate?
Kind of sounds Newfie to me. Like in Newfoundland, we've got same thing, right? They're like,
okay.
What's going on, mate?
Yeah, it gets real rough, okay? Now, imagine you have an Australian like that talking to a Scotsman or an Irishman with an even thicker accent. And it's like, and originally, initially, they're speaking the same language, but they're going to have a hard time understanding each other or comprehending each other. I don't like using the word understand, because you're not under the standing of anything. It's back to marine natural law, but this is the thing. They're speaking the same language, but eventually, after listening to each other and feeling each other out, as you do with your gut, you start to understand the gibberish, okay? Because you're feeling the actual waves of the sound and what's going on between the chief points of the actual consonants, okay? With the vowels are the main thing that alter dialect, okay? And eventually they're going to understand each other. And that was the same thing with Magyar language. In different regions, they'd be speaking slightly different dialects, but I dare say it wasn't as polarised as that as what can happen today between English language. And I was going to make an English language CD with this Asian guy to Asian people, because Asian people are generally better at learning English technically than English people, but they can't understand, I should say comprehend, the colloquialisms and slang. And so basically I was going to put together this course with this guy that gets people to understand all the colloquialisms, say in Canada, in America, in the UK, in Australia, wherever English is spoken. So then once you get inside the flavour and the timbres of the actual colloquialisms, then you can actually comprehend and speak the language better and get inside the flavour of the sound, and the accent, stuff like that. And that way the Asian people can comprehend English much better instead of in a real technical sort of, sort of gut related sort of sense. But I never got around to doing that. That's a long story. But anyway, that's what I was going to do over 10 years ago. But, and something came in between that, and I'm not at liberty to discuss it at the moment. But yeah, so that's the thing about dialect, so people can understand what dialect is all about. And in Australia, they say that there were over 500 tribal languages, right? Okay. Well, some of those languages were different because they did come from the north, like Nuggers, Dravidians, other people. I've even heard of some sort of Negroes from Africa coming down here that were Portuguese slaves in Western Australia and somehow ended up here as well. There's all sorts of stories, Australia has a hidden history. Uga, I should say. It's the original name the Woi Woi people knew, okay, on the Central Coast, which is in the real Garden of Eden area, and I'll get to that, okay, and the real meaning of Eden as well. It's an old Magyar word that people have forgotten. It means Jews. And the thing is that everything that's Jewish history is originally Magyar. So for those Jews that want to know their true roots, go look up all the Magyar stuff that's been stolen, or look at your own history and realise that it's Magyar, but undemonise it, That's the process to get back there. And when it comes to the Khazarians and the Zionists and all that sort of thing, they're so far removed from original Judaism, they're self-anointed sort of hijackers anyway. They're not even connected.
From what I understand, the current people that identify themselves as Jewish are what do you call that? They're Russian Jewish from Georgia, and the actual Jewish bloodline was wiped out thousands of years ago, and the current ones that we have today are Georgians from Russia.
Oh yeah, and now in Israel you've got all these Russian people that are IT experts and stuff like that running the whole of Israel and basically spying on everyone through everyone's Intel hardware, since they basically made all Macs and PCs have the same sort of Intel chips now that they can basically spy on people through. But thanks to Brendan O'Connell for that information. He's sort of on top of that information all the time. And what's basically happening is that there's all these Russian imports in Israel now that are not even Jewish either. They're Zionists, but they're not Jewish, okay? So it's got an even more sort of like far
out there, yeah.
So I'll get back to what I was saying about the languages here. They say here in the official history that there was over 500 different tribal languages, but that's a big smokescreen and cover-up, because what gives it away? Well, over 500 languages, even 900 languages purported in Egyptian sort of history at one stage, in forgotten Egyptian history anyway, and Egyptians all spoke Australian anyway, but we'll get to that, is that the root language of the songline, of the songs they sung, were all in the same root language, and they all had to know it, okay, for the songlines. Because otherwise they wouldn't have communication passage from tribal area to tribal area when they're on country and walking through and being respectful of each other's sort of tribal areas and grounds and all that sort of stuff. And the thing is that they all spoke, the original tribes here were Magyar tribes, and they all spoke Magyar language, and just different dialects and communal-lects of the same root language that make up all of these different dialects. And only some of the languages are imported from the north and other places, but otherwise for the mainstay, it's all Magyar language. And the thing is that, unfortunately, for a lot of the originals left, the ones that are in the know, that are elders that are sort of like my age in their 50s, sort of up to 70s and 80s, that are survivors of stolen generation, when basically children were actually taken from their parents and put into white foster homes, and literally the church clergy at the time were instructed to tell these children, never speak your tribal language again because it's the language of the devil. Now, how fucking ironic is that? Here they are, giving them Bibles have a Bible while we steal all your land and culture and everything like that. And yet the Bible was actually written, not in Hebrew, but Aramaic. Now, Aram in Magyar means current or stream, or for English translation purposes, river, but it's not strictly river. So it's like people of the river, just for easy, in Mesopotamia. But the original Sumeria before Mesopotamia was here in Australia, right next to Carry-On, Con Johns. That's what it means. Attila Flint worked that out. And I remember when the day he told it to me, he looked me directly in the eyes, and I was sitting at this desk here, and he's actually looking at me, and he's observing my reaction, you know, and he said, you know what this place, New South Wales South Coast, Central Coast, you call it Kangiang, but we say Con John, because you pronounce the O more like a soft O with a hint of an O. 15 vowels in Magyar, only 5 in English. So it's a much richer sort of language, you know. Mm-hmm. And so, and hence English doesn't have the phonetic strength to translate spoken tribal stuff in Australia, whether you want to call it Magyar or not, into English. It's the same agglutinative language, okay? It's the old language. And basically speaking, English doesn't have the phonetic strength to put spoken that language into written English because it's only got 26 sounds. Magyar language has 38 sounds originally, and then the Vatican added 6 extra sounds to compensate with confused tongues, Indo-European languages in Europe and stuff like that. So that gives you an idea of just literally the sound base of all the letters or the symbol characters when it used to be in runic script before it got Romanized. So of these over 500 languages in Australia, well, there's all Magyar language, just different dialects and dialects of it, okay?
Yeah, same thing.
And they've done the same thing in Canada and America and all that sort of thing?
Yeah, same thing happened up here in Canada with the residential schools where the Roman Catholic Church was up here and they were assimilating the Aboriginal people and committing genocide up here. And what they would do is they would go to the Aboriginal homes and they would take the children and put them into these residential schools and tell them that they're not allowed to speak their language because it's the language of the devil, and that anytime that they did speak their language, these children were punished and sometimes even killed. Now, sadly enough, in just the past couple of weeks, they have found 2,088 bodies of children buried in the grounds of these residential schools. And one just happens to be like right behind my house here, like literally across the river, about a 5-minute walk from here. And it's all forensically tapered off. But they found 215 children just in this one particular site. And they found 715 more in Saskatchewan. And I'm sure there's like tens of thousands more coming. But, you know, that's their way of destroying the language, right? Because if you don't have children to carry that language forward or that legacy to carry forward, then it's just going to die out with the you know, with the parents, with the current generation.
Okay, what I was going to say that's going to be the clincher, and thank you for sort of giving that sort of, okay, they did the same strategy over there as well. Okay, you know that, I know it here. Now I'm going to give you the real kicker here. Okay, the Aramaic language is actually a Babylonian dialect of Magyar language and has got nothing to do with Hebrew language whatsoever. And the Hebrews back at that time spoke a language called Assyric, okay? Now, I found that out because I got a copy from a Freemason of a Bible translation that a Jewish scholar did, where he wanted himself, he says in this introduction, he wanted to have his own pure translation straight from Aramaic into English without any bullshit in between. So that's exactly what he did. And he went and explained how the Hebrews were actually speaking Assyric there. Now have a look at this. As you write press of Colontic Science. Oh, my mate Stanley chased down the money trail on that one and basically got to some sort of Rothschild sort of gold trading company sort of thing. And I basically called out Colontic Science back in 2013 because when I checked out the language, and they were saying that Chinese, Ashiana Dean, I've got nothing against her. She's probably being used just like everyone else. She's doing her best. But this is what I found out, because it's got the most comprehensive information you can find on the Earth prehistory stuff and ancient history that you'll find maybe in Laura Knight's Cassiopean stuff that comes out of essentially Pelasgian sort of Etruscan, which is a dialect of Magyar as well, which is the same as Welsh language, as in Cambrian. I'm not Cambrian, that's the hieroglyphic. It's actually, the alphabet is Colbran and the language is Cymric, okay? And the Cymric come from the Sumerians, which is another Scythian tribe related to Magyars as well. Okay,
You know,
basically during the time of Attila the Hun, when he basically took things back over, his sons all went over to England and Wales. They were in there, and that's why they block out that part of history, because there's a big Hungarian sort of link there that they don't want people to know about. And all you have to do is look up the ether links, the eteles. You know, it comes from the original word of Attila in Magyar, which is etele, E-T-E-L-E. I think there's a stroke over one of those E's. And in sort of more like sort of Old English, which is Welsh, essentially, it's like etherlings, I think, if you say it properly. I can't pronounce their stuff too well. I've got to do a little bit more work on that. But I understand the whole schematics and architecture of what's going on in the dialect and language and stuff like that. And I highly advise people to check out the work of Alan Wilson, a Welsh...
Alan Wilson?
Yes. He's like the Attila Flink of Wales. And he's still alive. He's 89, just going on 90. And that guy's information, he's like Attila Flink. He's like the last of a bygone sort of generation. But, you know, he's like a genius of his own, unique genius of his own kind that worked out a whole lot of stuff purely through his centred observations from what I've seen. And, mate, this guy basically embarrasses all the English scholars in their own history. He proves that the English don't even have a fucking clue who they are anymore. And I know who they are, because basically Attila showed me this document written by this Swedish guy named Bogholm in 1939, and I've got a copy of this that I can send you. And on one of the pages, he writes in the Old Welsh, literally 2 words, and the second word is samatash. And Attila goes, that's my language, samatash. It means rubbish. Like, you know, it basically means decoration of the rubbish. Now, the thing is that this Swedish man, he put basically this as an example, but he was very clever at the time to not translate it, because it might have cost him his life, okay? Okay, in actually revealing what it means, and that there was a connection to Hungarian. So he actually put it there for the scholar that could actually read through it and actually translate it and realise, but hardly anyone could translate it. And along comes Attila Flink, and he goes, fuck, that's my language. Now, Attila Flink, because he could read the mistakes and word churning and hybrid words, Magyar words mixed with German words and this and that, he could literally get any piece of distorted language stuff and bring it back to its original state. He could read through everything worldwide. He was incredible like that. And he basically said, this is what the early Britons called the Romans, the decoration of the rubbish.
Oh.
We're talking about the early English, okay? Before they basically got colonised by the Romans, who are literally exiled Yahudi, Saturnalia cult people, so they're all Jews as well, the actual Roman elite that controlled Rome, okay? They were Saturnalia cult. And basically speaking, okay, England got invaded by them. Then their German cousins, okay, the Anglo-Saxons. Then you had the Vikings and the Normans that are all Khazar related as well. And the original Germans and Nordics were all basically, they came out of South America in Atlantean times and taken across to Europe as slaves, okay? And it's like, they were like a later white man that were basically created by the Draco. Now, you go and have a look at Bobby Hemmett videos called Artificial Human 1 and 2. I've checked out all the black history, all the Afrocentric history. I've checked out all of it because everything's valid. You find pieces everywhere. So I find the best of the best sort of dark-skinned people, light-skinned people, everyone people, you know. I check it all out, the best of the best. Now, with Bobby Hemmett stuff, he's got some great stuff there. And he goes on to say that it was us stupid fucking black men that actually created this fucking white man in the first place. In the temple of Set, the temple of fucking pig, you know, in the sense of like, it was literally like these Dracos and all these black shamans that actually created this technology. And not only that, of the elite sort of, now these Khazars who keep on fucking through all these different races and peoples, right from when they crashed into Arizona Canyon around 9000 BC, at the same time as the fucking little midget dwarfs, that are in Lord of the Rings in Middle-earth, guess where Middle-earth was? Americas, around that period, around 10,000 BC onwards. And the Khazars fucking come into the place in a spaceship of, it's a Tiamat moon that was basically called Lilith Malona, but they turned into a spaceship, and they used this navigational device. It's like an egg-shaped sort of device that's got an unborn fetus inside it, alien fetus like Draco fetus or human fetus, to basically power up the conscious technology of the actual device. And they used that as a navigational device to get through the Van Allen's belt, everything like that. And they crashed into Arizona Canyon. And ever since, the elites have had a big problem with all this fucking black goo down there in this crater in the canyon where they crashed 9,000 years ago. And basically the Khazars then spread out through the Mayan and the Aztec culture and all that. And that's why they let you know about all of that stuff.
Would the Olmec be connected to that?
Yes, because the Olmec basically mixed with the Chinese to create the Olmec Chinese royalty that basically ended up in Europe, which was called the Rothschild, R-A-U-S-T-H, child, Rothschild, Green Shield of Kazakhstan, that operated out of the Breton Empire in France, okay?
Oh.
Now, the Bowers basically identity hijacked, fucked into that sort of black Olmec Chinese bloodlines and turned it into the Rothschild Red Shield Illuminati code. And hardly anyone knows this. And I found this out of the Rothschild himself, who used to be a DJ at the Rothschild sort of mansions and all their parties and things like that, until one day they just treated him like a piece of shit and he just fucking walked out. And he had the shits. He said, these people have stolen my family title.
Huh. Wow.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing is, these elites, they've had the secrets of genetic technology all throughout the ages, especially when it comes to changing skin color. They know how to control the melatonin to turn themselves from white to black and black, all of that sort of stuff. And the thing is, as I found out of Dragon, my good friend that I met, who was a Montauk survivor who never went public, but he told me so much stuff. Oh, I could do another whole show just on his information. But he said to me point blank, in Atlantean times, they had genetic technology that you could literally change your appearance cosmetically just like that without any nip tuck surgery of today. So today is like a B grade sort of Atlantean sort of theatre stage production Hollywood rerun in real life reality compared to what Atlantis was like. Screwed up technology. And the thing is that in Atlantean times, they had the high technology already. And unfortunately, all of that pyramid technology and the rest of it ended up being a microchipping of the Earth's sort of orgone energy that was used in sex rituals and stuff like that to create all sorts of destructive technologies that should have never been created, because this is what happens. When we make externalized technology and it falls into the wrong hands, hence we've got the situation at the moment with all these elite fucking 3-year-olds on meth driving Ferraris, you know, regarding the toys they're playing with and the technology. And they're getting so mentally ill, and their whole sort of New World Order agenda of dumbing down the population over the last 4 or 5 generations has affected their own elite. Hence why they need fucking AI to run everything, because they're too incapable of doing it. Even when it comes to basically running the old Vimanas and Veluxis that the Tibetans told where to look, the Nazis where to look for them in Antarctica and stuff, when in their secret projects they're needing sort of people to drive them all and their consciousness-driven things. Well, the elites can't do it themselves because they're too fucked up. So they have to get the best Buddhist monks to do it all for them.
In the comments, Matt Gomez just made a reference towards Vimanas. Traveled in a Vimana. Matt, maybe you can elaborate on that, please, and I'll put it up. Can you talk about a little bit about the Vimanas?
Who's this? You want me to talk about him or the other gentleman?
No, yourself. While we wait for Matt to clarify.
Yeah. Okay, there were 2 types of main sort of UFO sort of types that the Nazis basically built their own sort of UFO models on and stuff that just connected with the Bell Project and stuff like that. And I'm going to get on the Bell Project, what that's all about too.
That clock?
Well, that Bell technology, you know what a bell is designed of? like the gunta in Buddhism, you know, that bell that you rub a drumstick around and you get that huge harmonic that literally, it's so loud you can hear it for fucking miles, you know.
Yeah, kind of like a sound bowl, right?
Oh,
but
yeah.
really intensified.
Guess what that bell is literally designed of? Okay, I'll give you what part of the human body?
I didn't catch that question.
Okay.
Guys,
Why do you think we call this a belly?
That's where all the harmonics happen.
Yeah. This is a sound chamber.
Yeah, like a sound bowl.
Yeah, this is where we play music through. And with medicine, okay.
It's like that didgeridoo you were doing earlier, what Chris was doing yesterday, and then the sound that you were making earlier.
Yeah, that's right, because you resonate it down here and you play music with your organs. Okay, and I did play bass trombone as a child, and I used to love playing pedal notes. And you know what? When you play pedal notes on a trombone and stuff like that, it absolutely, all the reptoids, okay, the Illuminati reptoids, they crack up. That frequency just makes them lose it. Like, I used to play some gigs and stuff like that, and I'd play this frequency, and I'd noticed the effect on certain people, and I'm just going, what's going on here? You know? And I used to love the low, deep tone anyway. I just felt it was really homely to me. And so I identified with low bass, and I ended up becoming a bass guitarist as well after being a guitarist. And anyway, the bass sort of realm sort of thing, that's what the male is supposed to do, hold down that sub-frequency, while the female basically cover a lot of all the other sort of upper songline sort of parts. This is when we get into real deep songline stuff that hasn't been around for a long time. And that's the only time. That's the only time.
Wasn't the Brahmanas like Hindu?
Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's basically a lot of Draco-like sort of technology, because unfortunately for the Indian people, the Blue Hathor sort of Dracos, that caste, are a lot behind the Indian sort of race, okay? And it's like today, you know, most of the big populations of the big races left are from certain Draco human hybrid sort of castes. Now, that's not to say anything bad about Indian people, because, as I said, a Magyar soul can spring up anywhere, an ancient soul in any sort of race. So we've got to look at all on a soul level. When I'm talking about genetic level stuff, I'm being diagnostic here. I'm not being racist. I'm not being anything. I'm just telling things.
Yeah, externalizing it. Like pretty much externalizing it.
Yeah. So what we're externalizing the technology, just getting back to the bell. Okay, yeah. That's what the Nazis did. They modeled that off the Tibetans' bell, because the Tibetans used to use that and music and stuff like that to move boulders up mountains and stuff like that, the secrets of levitation and all the rest of it, okay? It doesn't take much. It really doesn't. And this is why the pervarks don't want us to have our sovereignty back, because we're that much more fucking powerful than them once we learn how to censor again. Yeah. That's what this was all about, teaching everyone how to get their true self-sovereignty back and your real connection with God, which is Ishtan, the sun, you know, and everything that basically gives us life, the energy of life. We don't worship it. That's stupid. That's ego adulation. We don't worship ourselves. We don't worship an external icon. The whole thing about external icon worship is for the Dracos to basically suck up all that energy that's being directed at that icon. It's that fucking simple. And hence back to what you were saying about the Kaaba thing in Mecca, that's what they're doing there. They're taking all the Muslim energy, they're praying to Allah God, and they're sucking it up into Saturn, okay? That's basically powered by the black hole in the center of, you know, our universe. That essentially is a desecrated phosphorus light egg of Ishtar, okay? That's getting a bit deep. But when you were saying before, I'm just tying up a couple of loose ends here before I get back to the Veluxy and the Vamana. I haven't forgotten that there, Clarence. I tend to go off on 5 tangents at once and then bring it all back together. It's just my nature. Okay, so with the actual situation with that, the Nazis modeled that bell off the Tibetan bell, which was originally modeled off the human gut, okay? And they call it a ganta, okay, in Tibetan Buddhism, okay? Now, even the Tibetan Buddhism isn't the original Buddhism, and that's been dark flowered and all the rest of it. But there's still good stuff in there, there's still good people, and they're trying to find the truth, but they've just been misled and all the rest of it. Same with the Chinese Buddhism. And so the Nazis basically made this bell technology to be like a time travel technology, okay? Because with that Gunter also comes this device that's called a dorje. That kind of looks, it's sort of in the design of like, it's almost like a four-leaf clover if you look at it in the right way. Now, you attach that dorje with the Gunter to basically make a time travel thing. And the thing is, there's a certain way that you can make that dorje, okay? And I'm not even using the original language here. I'm just using the Tibetan language, which is convenient. Mm-hmm. You can make that dorje with your body to basically plug in to your Gunter so you can actually make it work properly. But I'm not going to give too much more information away because the information's too deep and it can only be used by the right people who have the right intent, because you won't get access to that sort of level of stuff until you've cleared out all the bullshit in your personality that we all get, programmed ego narcissism, and also all the fear programming, okay? And then you have pure intent. You have that connection with the wholeness, that be which is the source consciousness, you know, the energy of the sun, and the soul consciousness, that be which is Ishtan, which is the womb of the omniverse, you know, that has equal masculine and feminine energies together. Okay, so that's what's going on with the Bell project there. Now, back to the Veluxy and the Vimana, well, that's kind of, to me, more like the Draco sort of technologies for UFOs that they had in the sort of the Indian area, as it talks about in all that sort of Hindu stuff. Now, unfortunately, with the Hindu stuff, even though it describes a lot of stuff from a long time ago, and there is truth in it, all those Hindi texts have been rewritten since the time of Alexander the Great. So that's all been distorted. The same as Buddhism, the same as, like, all of these spiritualities that have been sound-coded to Kabbalah, Saturn worship, they're all originally chapters of the same book, the same original book, and it all goes back to the original Magyar tribes, which we all belong to. Now, I only call it Magyar because of the Magyar language, because that's what we all spoke. Now, it could have been called something much more simpler, a much more simpler sort of tone before it was actually Magyar, because even Magyar itself, the GY, in the way that the Vatican, Levite and Jesuit sort of priests sort of coded the actual language into Romanized letters, the Y is actually a real distortion actually in that sound. That sound is like, yeah. Okay, it's like a DJ sound in English in improvising the sound, but it's still got to have this j, like a G sort of droning through it as well. As Attila Flink told me in the oldest dialect that he knew, that he grew up in the country that was very similar to what the Tasmanians spoke. He said the Tasmanians were more eloquent than the Hungarian country people that spoke much older dialects than the colonised people in the city. Okay, so basically that's the thing about the Veluxys and the Vimanas, is they were seemingly the flying saucer tech of that particular sort of Draco-human hybrid thing. Now, the lower Draco tribes, okay, I mean castes, they're known as Hathor, okay? Now, Shem are basically the top sort of rank of the hierarchy. Now, Shem is original name for male, Hathor is the original name for female, and hence they put the females down the bottom, so to speak. But all Dracos are androgynous anyway. They just use it as they've just stolen everything off us, because what the Dracos do, they steal everything off us, our words, our everything, our meanings, and they hide behind them as a veil. So they're using our names demonized, and they're hiding behind it. So literally, you are not that, you are something else. And we call you something else. Okay, it's like, say, for instance, the actual devil, the Christian devil, is actually like a Draco governor general of this earth domain. And I basically was made to bring him out of a statue that he'd been locked up in when I was 4.5 years old. Okay, in a ritual in an Egyptian Rite temple in a place called the Manor, which is like a round table Illuminati headquarters in Sydney here. Okay, and they run it as a theosophical society sort of front. Okay, where the the OTO and other secret societies like that chain jerk it from the shadows, okay? And basically, I summoned this thing when I was in an altered, expanded state. They drugged me up on acid and all sorts of fucking drugs, and they had all these sort of alien sort of old animals, like in this one study, all along the wall in amniotic fluid. And literally, this professor used to literally get substance out of the glands of some of these old ancient things and mix it with his potions for all sorts of sort of expanded states of consciousness to basically use on victims, like as Crowley said, to have the perfect victim to make the magic work in the most strongest way. We need a child from the right bloodline, preferably a royal bloodline, original royal bloodline, and one that is highly intelligent and is innocent. And that way, the magic works much stronger. You can't just get any child.
Why, Gauze, sorry to interrupt, but before I forget, why royal blood? What's so special about the royal blood? Is it because it's blue blood or because it's connected to ancient bloodlines? Like, what's so...
Well, the whole thing about the royal Magyar bloodlines is that they are the core sort of creation bloodlines that are connected to the core of creation, in the sense of, like, they're actually the Magyar bloodlines, the magician bloodlines. Okay, they're the ones who literally, they know the law. They're the educators, you know. They hold the biggest responsibilities of holding everything together. And basically,
okay.
And they use time travel technology to basically do all this, because they couldn't have done it any other way. There's just no other way they could do it. And this is why history is so skewed up and we can't work out chronological dates. There's sort of like an added 1,000 years to the timeline that they lost 200 of those years through all the rituals they did, where they time traveled all these people into these rituals in the 70s that I was involved in. You know, this is so out there and whack. But the thing is that the truth is more whack than the science fiction they base it on to make money from, because they're not smart enough to come up with this in the first place.
Yeah,
so I gotta ask you, just out of curiosity, what is the end game for these Dracos? Or, you know, what is the deal? You know, what is the plan, I guess?
Well, it seems it's like that Sting sort of record, police record, you know, Ghost in the Machine. That pretty much tells you what it's about. They want to, like the elites here and the Dracos, they want to become mechanized. They're sick of having these bodies and shit. They just want to be a ghost in the machine that just keeps on working forever.
Kind of like a Borg of Star Trek.
Yeah. Literally, it's a Borg thing, you know. It's like Squidlay's right about that. They want to turn the human race into this cyborg sort of, you know.
That's where we got these eugenics. Is that what it's called? Eugenics going on right now?
Yeah, and transhumanism, because
that's the term I'm looking for.
Is all about being a transsexual, a transvestite, turning the male to female and the female to the male. Now, to be like Draco. Now, that's a desecration of the law, you know.
Yeah.
Homosexuality is a desecration of the law, full stop. And I've got nothing against homosexuals, but these eugenicists have worked out how to endocrine disrupt everyone on the whole world through all these toxic endocrine disrupting chemicals from the ink on your fucking receipts that you get from the supermarket, okay? That's endocrine disrupting material. So everyone handles receipts and that poison goes into them to cause them damage. This is how insidious these people are and evil, okay? They think of every opportunity to fuck us up. Then they put in our furniture and textiles all these toxic endocrine disrupting chemicals as well in most of our households, and then in our food as well. Look at all the food technology labels and stuff like that. It's just absolutely stupendous.
Yeah, and it reminds me of beer in an aluminum can, right? You know, the beer and the aluminum, you know, they don't mix well, and when you're drinking it, you're harming your body. So it's best to drink out of a bottled beer instead of canned beer. And I think that canned beer is designed to be that way so that it harms our avatar.
That's right.
The Alzheimer's, that's what it does.
What was that, Clint?
And that's the Alzheimer's, that metal.
Exactly. And not only that, they work out that getting aluminium into us is a low-grade sort of antenna conductor that they can basically use to basically tamper with us, using us as batteries, you know, for all their horrible stuff, you know, and that's what they basically designed the 5G network for. But they could do that even before 5G. Once you have everyone's unique frequency, they got blood banks, like say for instance in Detroit, okay, of
interesting.
It's literally a copy. They've got everyone's genetics. I don't even call it DNA, because DNA, the term, as Dr. David Martin pointed out in one of his lectures, is a eugenics term that was come up by two eugenicists in the 50s. And I've been saying for years that DNA are actually all these, when you look at it, it's all this mathematical, like code locks, like switches on our genetics that turn things on and off. And most of it is turned off linguistically by the language we're speaking now, that makes our instinctual language unconscious, where it used to be conscious once upon a time.
Mm-hmm.
See, we're meant to be communicating from here, not here.
Yeah.
Not here, from here. Sorry, not here, here, but here.
Yeah, Gaz, you just mentioned, you know, them tracking or, you know, trying to, you know, learn about our avatar frequency with these, you know, what's happening with all these pokies that they're giving people, right? I wonder if there's not some sort of a technology involved with that where they can get that frequency of us, because each individual has a different vibration, different frequency.
That's what I'm saying. Once they have your unique frequency through your genetic material, okay, your chromosome material, we shouldn't call it DNA, but chromosome material.
Yeah.
They can basically send out a sound wave through EMF or ELF, okay, and it's usually the ELF, the extremely low frequencies. They're the penetrating, hitting ones that really fuck you up. And they've been doing that to me for years to stop me from centering, because I know how to use my body energetically.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been having this war with them for years that hardly anyone knows about, because I can't even describe this stuff to most people, because it's too out there for them, because most people don't understand sound and frequency and vibration in life on that level. But sound, a lot of musicians think, okay, sound comes first. No, sorry. The language comes before the sound, because all life is in language. And you need to have that original Magyar language in order to deliver the actual sound of light. Light is sound as well, too.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a frequency you can't hear. It's still frequency and vibration, okay?
Yeah, light language.
Sound, light, language, genetics, it's all in language, and language is what delivers the source consciousness energetic information to all of those processes. So without the language, it's like that can't happen, you know?
Yeah.
Like, sure, you can work out the original intuitive, I should say instinctive, intuitive language of sound yourself without learning the Magyar language. I know a couple of shaman that have, but ultimately you have to eventually consciously learn the Magyar language, because otherwise you're not going to be able to describe anyone the more subtle, finer tremors of life.
Mm-hmm.
English language. George Bernard Shaw said, he was pissed off like me. Once he realised the magic of the Hungarian language, he said, man, if I learnt this language as a native, my native tongue as a child, I would be able to express and write so much better than I can already do right now. And I feel exactly the same way, that this is my language. I've grown up in this shit fucking bogan Australia that's as rough as guts, okay, so far removed from my roots. Because I'm Australian, like I'm not a Hungarian or anything like that. When I trace back all my bloodlines, yeah, it all goes back to Magyar, because I have that information now, especially through my Irish side.
Mm-hmm.
And Tribe of Dan, because that's originally Magyar before they turned it into Jew stuff. And that was all done through the Hyksos, okay? When the Hyksos Khazars, okay, they were actually Khazars back then. And they try to say, oh, Khazars only mysteriously appeared in the first 10 centuries AD. Bullshit. They've been hiding themselves throughout history for ages. And those Hyksos that fucked over the original Druids in Ireland, the original Scythian Magyars, okay, they went on to Egypt, caused more fucking trouble. You know, when we get up to Ramses II, who basically murdered King Khufu to take over, when King Khufu, who was actually a woman dressed up as a man, okay, and she came to Australia to marry a medicine man, Duddy from here, from down the Murray-Darling River, to basically take back to Egypt, because Egypt was really sick at the time, and she wanted to do the right thing and heal Egypt and go back to the old ways. But instead, jealous little sort of inbred sort of little brother, sort of Ramses II, he was spying on them the whole time down here, tampered with their UFO, so it basically crashed because they used to fly between the backs of the Sphinxes on UFOs back then. Okay, that crashed. She survived the actual crash, but then after that, they made sure that they were murdered. The Aboriginal people here tried to actually resuscitate her using the strongest medicines possible, like using the magic mushrooms and everything to try and get her back. But when it came to it, she didn't want to come back. She was so upset. She was so sad, so everything. They couldn't get it back. And you know what? It tells that whole story on the carry-on hieroglyph wall. And unless you've got the knowledge of centering, how to read the centering symbols, you're not going to work this stuff out. You're only going to have pedestrian surface sort of meanings, like in the Westcar stuff and all the rest of it. It doesn't go deep enough. It doesn't have the reality. Basically, when they write something in stone, that's there forever, okay? And that's the oldest example of Proto-Egyptian hieroglyphics in the world at the moment. They've probably trashed other examples because they don't want this knowledge coming out. And
that's why they're fighting the carry-on so hard, saying that those glyphs are fake, or some guy from World War I or II came back and put them on, and
it's all real.
Everything they possibly can to deny the legitimacy of carry-on.
Well, how's that? I've been here for centuries.
Was actually a woman who basically just a man in Egypt.
Clarence, what were you saying?
I said them glyphs have been there for centuries.
Yeah.
And that story.
I remember.
Clarence, that story's been there for centuries, written on there, waiting for someone who can read it again, who knows how to plug into nature and center.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when Stephen and them went in and tried to give the story, and they got most of it right, I think, but there was still a lot of it that was missing,
Stephen's really good because he considers everyone's story, he's really, really good, and he facilitates information well. And he's always open to all possibilities. And I've got a lot of respect for the work that he does. But the thing I have to step forward now and say, well, you've got to know the old ancient language of centering, of the instinct. In a lot of these glyphs are different aspects of centering. That's what they're describing. Because what they're doing is they're going between one realm and another with these different centering things that you go through your crown and your fisheye. There's all these fisheye symbols on there for centering and stuff like that. Right. And there's an arrow there that indicates centering here. Like it goes from the arrow to the cross, which is the chiasmus in your brain, where all your soul totems meet as one, okay? And then, and then basically once you do that, you're literally between your two temples. There's a T after it that basically show the two sides and the center line down between the two temples. And literally you see the center line all the way right up through the glyphs. It's all done in relation to centering. All life is about centering. So if you didn't know how to center, you couldn't read the stars. You couldn't read the star maps.
Mm-hmm.
Since you're on centering, Gauze, I'll address Matt Gomez's question to you after this question, because since we're on the topic, this is from our YouTube channel, from Lindy Lou for you, asking, what about centering in the heart and love frequency?
Okay, centering is not the core. Centering is one of your energy centers that we call chakras. Now, when you call it an energy center, that's C-E-N-T-E-R. But your center is C-E-N-T-R-E. That's here. Okay? Belly button, solar plexus, gut. Okay? And you can even connect to your appendix. That's in that same centering area there, and that's huge. But I'll get back to that, okay? I just want to clear up a couple of things that I missed before. I wanted to clear up because I'd keep on racing onto other things, is that when I'm talking about the Draco reptoids, in the sense of like, we would call them out for what they were. We wouldn't call them by these names that they're hiding behind that they've stolen off us, like Satan and stuff like that, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so basically, I called this particular Draco the fake cat. Why? Because it's got cat in its genetics, right? It's a combination of reptilian, cat, and quite a number of other things as well.
Would that cat be the Lyrians?
The Lyrians?
Yeah.
Well, that gets into a complicated story because
there's
because the new age is what they give us out there. Well, it's not quite true, is it? It's based on truth. There were these cat mutants. They were the original sort of rebellion from the original cetacean fish being types, clear fish being types. And I remember Swerdlow basically saying in one of his stuff that there were these mythical sort of clear being types that were responsible for making the Draco. And that's as much as they give them in the Montauk's and stuff like that, okay? And that was the clue. And indeed, we were those fish, clear fish beings that were cetacean-based, more like sort of whales, dolphins, those sort of types, okay? Mm-hmm. Seahorses, there's a few different types there. And we could shapeshift. We're the original shapeshifters. They stole the technology of us because we used it to heal the original reptilians that were made by the cat mutants and the dog mutants that were the mutineers from the original fish civilization that turned themselves into these desecrated mutant sort of land beings that were parasites, okay? And they created the first reptilians, and we healed them first. The original reptilians, there wasn't a problem, and we created a body for them to shapeshift from reptilian back into more of a mammalian sort of being that's got a sense of smell again, because reptilians and primates and that, they've got a poor sense of smell. That's part of their problem, okay? And we would heal them and give them a sense of smell again, and it took us 500,000 years to terraform the place, you know, with trees and everything like that. Before the trees were giant mushrooms, okay? That's another story, okay?
Yeah, there's actually a record of that. There's a giant mushroom in Oregon that you know, it's like 8,000 years old, and it's like one of the biggest and the oldest living organisms in the world right now.
Well, before we had forests, okay, and most of the omniverse was actually sea life, but we did have the ability to shapeshift into other parts of our soul totems and go onto land if we wanted to, but we were predominantly in the sea. But in the sea and on the land, we had all of the giant mushrooms that literally used to provide life force to the atmosphere that we lived off. We never had to eat a thing. We were just pure energy in that sense. We were physically as well as every other realm as well.
Yeah, that's a really deep one.
They try to tell us this is Draco bullshit, that we originally just come from pure spirit and consciousness, and we never had a physicalness, and we descended into this physical sort of lower density stuff. That's the biggest load of fucking shit, because we have to have this physical to make things happen in the metaphysical as well. We have the metaphysical controls the physical, but it happens in the physical. And if we lose control of the physical, we're all fucked.
Yeah, now because you're on that, I was actually kind of waiting for you to get on that. I got a question here from Matt Gomez, kind of relates to what you're saying. Yeah. What do you think about the Akashic records?
The Akashic records, the one in the third eye, it's a fake Draco one, okay? He's asked a very good question there. You want to know the real sort of access to the Akashic records? It's somewhere else in the body. It's through an organ.
Through an organ?
Yeah, it's one specific organ. You got access to the Akashic records once you have pure intention and you're not a fuckwit.
Which organ?
Because you won't get access otherwise unless you have that pure intention and you got ethical sort of, you know.
Which organ, guys?
Sorry?
Which organ?
Okay, I'm going to sort of clue you into it, okay? Okay, look at the function of an appendix in a book, okay? What's the actual function of an appendix in a book?
That's a good question.
This is where they hide the information.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so the function of an appendix in a book, it's a list of annotations and records. Okay, so energetically speaking, apply that back to your own appendix. There you go. There's your link to the Akashic records.
I see. I'm just pulled up an image here. I'll share it.
Sure. Now, the appendix also is a reset switch in our body too that resets all the fauna in our intestines and gut as well. It's very important function in the body, and in medical science, allopathic eugenics designed medical science of today, they say, oh, it's not an important organ at all. Oh, it's just something that we used to use when we used to
Yeah,
eat.
I'm just going to come to that.
And we're starting to eat more meat and stuff, so we didn't have any use for that. That's the biggest crock of shit I've ever fucking heard in my life.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Sorry, I'm really passionate about this. It's like, and I have to hold my inner fire back because this is what happens.
No, don't hold nothing back on Watcher's talk, brother.
What would it mean?
It's like if you're not angry and fucking mad about the insanity of the state of this world and what these perverts, you know, have done, there's something wrong with you. There is a time and a place for righteous blue flame of anger, as I call it. The red flame of anger is just this bullshit, narcissistic, egotistic, sort of petty brushfire sort of anger. When someone's whinging about, oh, you didn't paint my nails right, or oh, my champagne's gone bad. That's what the
That's like total low brain thinking.
Yeah, it's sort of dead pieces of wood, bassoon
Yeah.
player, you know, without saying that particular word that they'll get fucking angry at me for. Faggot. And what's a faggot? A dead piece of wood. And you know what? They love red bundles of fasci, dead pieces of wood, because all bundled up pieces of faggots together, then they stay together. Okay, so they love all that. They love calling themselves faggots and being faggots. But if we say it, they get offended.
Yeah.
Fuck off.
Yeah, it's like earlier what you were saying. This kind of correlates to that as well. That's pretty cool.
I've got nothing against homosexual people that have been endocrine disrupted and they don't understand the science of any of this and endocrine and everything, okay? At the end of the day, you are a true brother and sister soul. You've got to know the truth. And you know what? Just drinking clean water, distilled water, will be halfway to healing yourself from that. It's not eating toxic food, it's putting toxic stuff into your body. You know, that's how you get endocrine disruption. You know, you can heal it. And once you actually heal yourself, you get your natural instincts back. You know, I'm not trying to be cruel or anything, but this is true. And the thing is...
Well, here's the thing, though. A lot of people don't understand that gays, gayism, whatever you want to call it, homosexuality, dates back centuries and centuries and centuries. There's nothing new.
That's right.
The Roman Empire, even Caesar himself had a whole whack of freaking guys that he slept with. You know what I'm saying?
Well, it's literally synonymous with the whole satanic chain jerk Jewish culture. Now,
it actually goes back to the animal kingdom. You know,
and every time they go a reset period, which I call the split timeline 9/11 event, where they split the timeline with a huge destruction thing at a certain pivot point in time and location on Earth to split the timeline so they can reset and start again and leave that timeline below. It's like they've got a multi-track recorder of all these timelines that are literally they keep on covering up and repatching, and you know, it's like repatching a sound disc. You know what I mean? With this timeline, split timeline sort of technology, it's the same as like cutting sort of audio tape or videotape, and they splice it all together and start the timeline again. And so every time, just getting back to what you're saying there, Clarence, is that every time they split a timeline event, the world basically goes into this homosexual depravity en masse every time, right before. This is the Draco tool to degenerate the world into absolute filth, and then they literally reset it all, blow it all up, kill everyone, and move on. And all the souls then reincarnate through the astral purgatory, because people tend to go towards the light, which is a trick. Don't go towards the light if you die. Then you go back to the real source, and then you can have the choice whether to come back again or not. But if you go through astral purgatory of heaven and hell fucking program bullshit, they just reprogram you to do the Draco bidding again on Earth, thinking you contract and all this thing, and you have some mission to do for humanity, but really you're doing it for the Dracos to basically harvest more energy from us.
Yeah, exactly. I've thought about
that before.
Yep.
What was that?
So that's what's going on that level.
I've heard that before. That's what reincarnation was all about. They just send you back in a different form to restart all over again, you know.
Well, to me, in the Bible, that's the real meaning between firstborns and secondborn. If you're a firstborn, it's not so much the eldest born of like a family, okay? That's what they automatically think. A firstborn is someone that comes straight from source.
Yeah.
Okay? A secondborn is someone that comes programmed back out of astral
Through the incarnation.
controlled by the Dracos.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't heard anyone else offer that explanation.
It makes sense. You know, what I've said is that they've cut our longevity down to, you know, like 80 years to a maximum of 120 years compared to our longevity from the ancient times when we lived for, you know, like 1,000 years or even longer sometimes. And the reason why they did that is to program us to go into their matrix for us to incarnate, to come back so that they can continue to feed off of our energy, right? Which is the source principle.
Yeah, they do a memory wipe and then you come back in again and just don't get any past life memory or anything. So you've got to start again from scratch. And the whole thing is to not die.
Yeah, exactly. And the entire programming of these religions, when they've inserted the heaven and hell deal, is to make you believe that when your avatar expires, that those are the only places where you will go. It's either you're going to go to heaven or you're going to go to hell. And if you have that in your mind,
that's where you're going to go. Yeah.
And then that's where you'll go. But if you don't have that in your mind and you don't have that preconceived thinking, then instead of going to that heaven or that hell that they've created, then you will just naturally go back to the source and you'll integrate back with the source, turn into your natural form. And then if you wish to incarnate again into a different form or into a different being, onto a different planet, or even a planet for that matter, then you can do that, right? But this entire program that they've got set up with, you know, heaven and hell, it's exactly what it is that you're talking about, Gus. I absolutely 100% agree with you.
Yeah, and I thank you for this opportunity for you guys just sitting back and listening to me and giving me the space to get into my centre zone, to run all about the shop as I am in all these different interconnected areas to get this information out.
Yeah.
Because they've been stopping me. I've been monitored by Voice to Skull and terrorised by them for the last 3 years, to the point that I got to the point where, okay, I'm going to use you as batting practice. You know, I'm going to back engineer all your algorithms, all the psychology, everything that you're throwing at me. I'm going to personality profile everything just like I personality profile everyone in my whole life through body language and everything since I was a young child, because no one ever told the truth. Because that's the thing. Once you lie to yourself, you're going to lie to other people still. You know, and this is the thing. When people are traumatized and they go through stuff, they hide the truth. You know, they're too afraid of saying the truth and stuff like that. And I was like that for many years after all the ritual stuff done when I was younger. And
yeah, me too. I was in. I did exactly the same thing. You know, I had a lot of trauma from the time of pretty much like 11 until I was about 26, 27. And then I ignored it and denied it, that didn't happen to me. And then it was only in my, you know, mid-30s when I hooked up with my wife that, you know, I experienced love for the first time. And when I experienced love for the first time, I was able to go back and work with all these traumas and identify and stop lying to myself that, hey, this didn't happen to me. It was just, you know, it was a thing and blah, blah, blah. But, you know, when I, you know, got the love that I was looking for in my life, then that really opened me up to my trauma, you know, from this lifetime.
So you could literally regress and go back, see it for what it was. In a sense,
yeah.
And then by doing that, you have a big aha moment and you go, that's what happens. That's why I get triggered by this in the present, that in the present. And when you have that aha moment, bang, you release the emotional charge of that trauma, and you've got that here and now freedom again, and you're not triggered by any of those same semantics and dynamics in the here and now of that similar sort of trigger sort of thing that'll bring up that past unconscious sort of destroyed experience. That initial
exactly.
An initial psychological imprint. Yeah.
What I do is you know, self-hypnotism, and I've been doing this for a while now. Is what I do is when I go into a meditative state or into a dream state, I you know, take myself back in time to where I had these traumatic moments, you know, like the key traumatic moments that have really, you know, stuck with me. And I go back to that time and I comfort myself and I speak to myself and I exchange energy with myself. And what I found is that doing this over the course of like the last bunch of years is that it's really, really helped me to regress my own energy into the energy that I'm blossoming into today, because I'm not carrying that weight of that trauma anymore.
Exactly.
Because I've gone back and corrected it. And then, you know, also what I do is I go to the happy moments in my life in the past when I'm feeling, you know, a little bit down or a little bit of sad. Go into that daydream, and then I go back into time where I've had a very happy moment and enjoyed it, and I, you know, take energy from that moment, and then I bring that energy back, and then when I bring that back, I feel a whole lot better about myself, and then I don't feel sad anymore, right? I feel more vibrant.
I actually wrote a song about that very thing with a friend of mine, Vincent Stone. We had a band called Stone. Never ended up releasing it, but I still got an album sitting on the fence. And we had this song called Remember, and it was literally about that. Remember back to the time in your life. This is all for people that have gone through sexual abuse, all sorts of horrible childhood stuff, things like that. And to basically go back into the time of your innocence when you first discovered your first sensations, like walking along the beach, the warm sand under your feet, the smell of the sea breezes and those negative ions coming off the ocean giving you all that, you know, and all those natural, wonderful things. The first time you discover a pollen ball, you know, in a field, you know, or on the side of the road. And they call that a weed, but it's actually a perfect template of centering and the omniversal masculine and feminine sort of symbolic sort of primary shape archetype of both the masculine and feminine together. How you've got essentially like a round, ballish sort of feminine shape, but yet you've got all these masculine lines coming out from the core. Okay, and it's nothing like any of these secondary sort of sacred geometry sort of stuff that's all distorted. When you a circle that basically puts everything off on a 23.4 degree angle that adds up to 9. And there's the 9 distortion focusing everything on the head instead of the whole body. And so that's the thing. We wrote that song about remember that part of you before the shit started to happen. And that's how you're going to get back. Okay? Remember that part, those simple, innocent things. You know, the first time you had an ice cream, the first time you just did something simple and you had that sensation, literally sensation. That first body experience of your existential life journey of finding out what life is about all again until you remember everything. Like with education, all we need is a few wise elders to show us, guide us to the places inside of ourselves where we already know all the information in our instinct and our soul, so we can continue our lives again and not have this disconnect from our past lives, so we can continue this journey that we're meant to have over one continuous lifetime. Because like, as you said, we got hacked down to, 80 years now, roughly speaking. Okay, what I've worked out was there actually were a first Homo sapiens, and they had slightly different bodies to what we are now, okay? And they could live for much longer, okay? But then there were all these second Homo sapiens after the flood that were created by the Dracos, you know, to reseed things, okay? And eventually over time since then, the first and the second Homo sapiens have mixed together, and now it's just all hybridized down because there's too many second Homo sapiens that bring down the lifespan unless we learn how to center and extend our brain telomeres and all the rest of it so we can extend our lives again. But look, I've read about plenty of stories that there have been men through history that have done it. I've seen on the internet a couple of guys. There was one guy in China that lived over 300 years or something like that. There was another guy that lived 250, 260 years, and they were showing, I had footage of him like over 200 years old or something, you know, and he just looked like an old man, but it's like he'd worked out how to power his body with minimal sort of things because he knows himself. He knows how his body works, so he knows how to keep longevity happening and what to put into his body to keep his engine running good, like a good V8 car, okay, or V12 car, or I should say V13.
Here's the guy that you're talking about. gods.
You found him, have you? I can't remember his name, but I checked him out and I go, yeah, there's been people around this all through the ages, but do they ever really report about it? No.
This is the guy, Li Cheng Yuan, 256 years old.
Yep, that's one of them. And then there's another sort of, I think he's Indian or something close to Indian, something like that. Yeah, but that's another.
Here's another guy that's lived an extremely long time, and looking for that the Indian guy that I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, so they actually had him on a video on YouTube. I don't know if it's still up on YouTube. I can't remember the reference. I check out so much stuff. I can't literally remember every single detail, even though I'm pretty good at remembering most things.
Yeah, but there was a woman also who was a prophet that lived quite a long time like that. She was blind and stuff. I can't think of her name. Is
Baba Vanga. Is that who you're thinking?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Yep. Oh, yeah, I know about her. She's quite something. She's quite something.
Pretty amazing.
Yeah. And so, yeah, so I think I've almost tied up all my loose ends here. Getting back to that PDF that I sent you the other day, Omar, like how the PDF, that's a real simple PDF for anyone to understand, okay? Some people will have to basically do a bit of research to basically comprehend some of the deeper sort of aspects if it's not familiar language. But anyone that's been studying religion or spirituality, even in a basic way, should be able to understand this stuff, or should say comprehend, understand. And what it is, it shows how the whole Marine Admiralty system of law is a fraud that's based on Kabbalah, which is a total perversion of the original law that we know as the Magyar language today. And even if they try, and they had to distort the Hungarian language today as it's distorted, even in its distorted state, they can't get rid of the true creation mechanics in it because they don't even properly comprehend them anymore. Anyway, because what they do, every time they steal something throughout history from us, and then they manipulate it into their technology, in their sort of victory sort of hubris, they think, oh, shit, we don't need this anymore. We just want this, and this. So they throw it all away, or they lose it, or do something stupid. Then further down the line, they realise, oh, shit, we should have kept that information. We need it now. So then they have to go back to a Magyar soul in humanity to basically monitor them for a while to see if that information is coming up through them so they can steal the information back. And that's what they've been doing to me for the last 3 years, where I've just literally hit the deepest sort of core levels of a lifetime's work in the centering and language and all medical science, shamanistic science, because let's face it, you know, modern science is still catching up to what the shamans have known for ages. And a shaman in its true sense, as Robert Morningstar says, and I really respect that man and his work.
Oh, I know Robert Morningstar, very good man.
Yeah, he's a very good man. And he's right. He's right about so much, because if we look after the woman, okay, and this is where chivalry really comes from, it actually really did exist. If we look after the woman, the whole tribe's happy. But the woman, she can't be a bipolar idiot. And also we've got to get rid of the influence of the moon, because that moon wasn't always there. That moon was put there after that particular last flood to basically manipulate all the water on Earth, okay, like a vampire, to suck all the orgone out once a month. And hence women have to do this balancing act every month because their water's being stuffed with, okay? And if they didn't have their water being stuffed with, it'd be such an easier job for them because they're so much more powerful than we are with the metaphysical stuff. They're meant to be the real priests. And I'm not talking about priests, the middleman between us and God, you know, source consciousness. No, I'm talking about the real priest practitioners that do the custodian work. They're the real royal bloodline stuff. That's what royal bloodlines are about. They're the people with the best consciousness, because consciousness is the only real current sea, you know, a sea that flows, currents, you know, because that magnetic source energetic consciousness is literally like an ocean of conscious fluid intelligence. So it's like, and women are so close to that, and women give birth to life. That's what the omniverse is. But at the end
From
of the
the center. Women give birth from the center.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And you know what? When that moon wasn't around, I reckon the whole birth process was much simpler and much shorter and much less traumatic for women. And they literally put that moon in there to make the birth process 9 months, to put the women through extra trauma and extra everything, okay? Because you look at, okay, even when the moon came into existence, the Magi had to realize, okay, it's a distortion, it's a parasite. Even in the Kabbalah stuff, it's called sin, the moon, sin light, you know. Anyway, that's where the original sin comes from, that fucking thing, you know. And that's by Saturn, you know.
Yeah.
That's basically chain jerked by the black hole in the center of the, you know, the galaxy here that's controlled by the dark side. That basically I'm doing work to get that back and heal it. And that sounds crazy to most people, but once you know this stuff, you don't fuck around.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I've said the same thing many, many times, is that once you know something, you can't unknow it because it's just so profound that your mind just won't let that go. You know, I've hypothesized on the moon connected to Saturn. I guess it goes with the Saturn moon matrix. And what I've said is that the frequency that's coming off of Saturn, that they've harnessed it through the artificial ring system that they've created and the moons that they have around Saturn.
Notice that the ring is horizontal around the planet.
Yeah,
and
it's crystalline based as well.
Okay, and that sort of circumcision, that cutting off the ring there, is binding them to that Saturn ring over there.
And that's a traumatic thing. I read something actually just yesterday.
Because apart from the belly button, the most blood vessels in the male is right on the foreskin. And if you cut the foreskin off, you can't make a woman have a proper G-spot orgasm properly without that orgasm there, because there is an energetic connection that hits the woman right in the back up here from here. And this is just sheer natural science. I'm not, you know.
I read an article yesterday where they were saying they did an experiment, and a baby was born, and they stuck like all these things and gadgets on the baby's head before they did the circumcision on this child, and they were mapping the brain, as you know, the waves in the brain and stuff like that. And then they wanted to see what would happen to the brain when the circumcision was happening. So what they realized is that when that circumcision was happening, it created extreme amounts of trauma on the child. And then they came back a week later and a month later and a year later to see if the brain had reset itself to prior to the circumcision trauma. And they discovered that the brain never goes back to that particular default mode, because now it's in trauma, and then everything that happens throughout life, they're going to relate that particular traumatic event to the rest of their experience in life.
This is how they control the Jewish race, by literally making them Draco's chosen people. Okay? I'm just saying the truth for what it is. Because
you know what's really odd is the fact that they actually circumcise women in certain cultures also.
And they do the Muslim thing and even the Catholic thing, and they say that it needs to be done. Too. The woman was given something masculine that it shouldn't have. Now, they might be even slightly right about that, but still it's a barbaric act to do.
It's way barbaric. It's insane. It's
in Africa they do it, and the girls are 13 years old. When they become of that age, that's when they do it. Can you imagine being that old and having that done? That's crazy.
That came to Australia through the Nuggers, who essentially related to the original sort of dark-skinned Hebrews in Sumerian times, okay? And they brought that all to Australia, that circumcision sort of thing, and knocking out a tooth as a sign of manhood when you're basically going out as a 13-year-old, when they have their true bar mitzvah, so to speak, where you go out initiation in the bush. That's when in modern times they just basically have a big piss-up sort of party with the family and you get heaps of presents, you know?
Spartans did the same thing. They would send their kid out at, like, I think 10, 13 years old or so, and then they would have to go out for an extended period of time, and they would have to do certain things for that initiation to come back.
Tribes, the original tribes of here, Ugar, Australia, and Ugar means uncultivated land, okay? And the Gar part literally means peoples. It's like peoples of Ishtan. That's essentially what Ugar means in the deepest sort of sense, okay? I consult the deepest sort of best Hungarian linguists and historians too that are in the know on this stuff, because I'm not going to pretend I'm going to know more than a native speaker about the language. But as far as the consciousness is concerned, well, I'm tapped in on that level, no problem. You know, that's where I can relate with them and actually teach them something more, because as I said, I've learned the language of instinct for over the last 30 years while people are wanking with their third eyes.
Yeah.
I knew from an early age, this third eye stuff, I could do it. I could actually see people's past lives and entities and things in their face when I get into a darkness vision in my third eye. Look, I know how to do all that stuff, but I detected, hold it, there's something wrong about the polarity of this here. And even in the clear vision school, they taught you to connect to your gut by basically activating your third eye through friction breathing here, by dropping your jaw and connecting on a light feeling here. Okay? That amplifies the space here. But you know what? That's all wrong. You need to be centered first before you go into this or the fish eye here. Okay? Sorry, you can't see me. You need to be centered here first before you go into this or the fish eye. Okay? You must. Otherwise, you're toast. You are potential toast. And
Matt
so...
Gomez. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I forgot what I was going to say anyway.
That's me. I'm sorry. I jumped in. I shouldn't have said anything.
I've actually done pretty well, however long we've been talking, because this is the first time I've sort of lost my thread. But that's okay. I guess I came to the end of what I was saying, so please continue, Clarence.
Well, I'm just going to comment on Matt Gomez's deal there. He says, can lunar energy have a lot to do with women's pregnancy? It's not so much, well, it does, but back in the day, it was more about the solstices. It was winter solstice and spring and summer solstice is when the pregnancies and that were calendarized, so to speak, much like the animal kingdom, you know.
Well, I'll give you an example, okay? There's a moon calendar, okay, that basically is 260 days, okay? And on the 261st day is when the baby will be born, which is 9 months. And it's pretty much 28-day calendars. That's where they basically turn it into the 28-day calendar months for the corporate thing. They basically is a takeoff of that. It's from the moon calendar. And that 261 days adds up to 9. The head thing again. So that's part of the Kabbalah distortion where everything adds up to 9. But 9's not 10. And you got to have the line, masculine and feminine 0, all balanced in the same tone, the sound. And even with music, people say that A equals 432 instead of 440. Now, 432 sounds better, but to me, it's closer, but still no cigar. It should be 433 adding up to 10, because 10 is the only numerical digit that has an equal balance in its primary symbol archetype of the feminine and the masculine all in the same tone. Now, that's why they use binary code in computers, which is all zeros and ones. However, if you use primary shapes not in equal sort of harmony together, they become inorganic. That's why you see all these sun signs on bank buildings and in Swiss buildings and all on Ross's videos and stuff like that. Is if you use one of those signs in separation, like they do in computers, they've got the 1 and 0 there, but they're in separation. It becomes organic too, like when the circle is squared and you get all your triangles, squares, octagons, pentagons, blah, 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 gone, and whatever, you know. It's all stiff and rigid stuff. It's all over angular, masculinized shapes, okay? And so they're not natural shapes. You don't see them in nature. The only times you do see them in nature is in hybrid sort of plants and fossilized sort of remains that have been literally, these comet sort of things have literally spelled DNA into the whole planet, the whole Fibonacci sequence and everything. It's not natural. It was never like that. Fibonacci equals fib of no chi.
Oh, that's a good one. I like that. Fib of no chi. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I like that. That's pretty good.
Because it's all Metatronic. Now, the Colonic science people get this right, okay? That's how they get people in. But the Colonic science Christic spiral, again, closer but no cigar. Why? Because it's all based on binary code. And you know what our computer code should be? We should use a symbol of the ember. You know,
Yeah,
man and woman. We
yeah,
should be using a symbol. And I'm wondering if those Atlantean computers made out of crystals and stuff that Swerdlow and people like that have seen, you know, in caves at the bottom of Lake Titicaca and stuff like that. I wonder what the actual computer code is. I bet you it's symbols that are actually more sort of organic symbols that combine the feminine and the masculine together, like, say, for instance, like a fireweed ball or a forget-me-not pollen ball or even a dandelion foliage ball. If you use that as a feather symbol, man, you can use that to go into different realms through your fisheye. My goodness, this is what the centering symbols are for. I'm giving away some big stuff here.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Probably has something to do with the spiral.
Yeah, and I'll tell you
Yeah,
another.
I was just going to say that. I was just going to
Yeah.
say that because those
Yeah,
spirals are
all the
global.
tribal paintings of all those spirals, but
Yeah.
they're never totally round, but they're roundish
Yep.
and they're centering symbols. Yeah. And
Yeah, and pretty popular too because they're right across the planet. Right, every single culture used them in the past. Every super civilization has. Right,
Yeah,
so there's
Even
something
even
specific
Mother Earth
about
uses the spiral.
What was
Yeah.
that, Larry?
I said even Mother Earth uses the spiral.
Yeah, yeah,
that's right. So this is the thing. It's like if you have a look on the Bosnian pyramid, they have even like this. I think it's four spirals coming out of one or something. And then they use the triple spiral thing too. You find in all the old Celtic stuff and things like that. But I think you need the extra one to balance it because it all comes back down to the original creation template, which is the mountain of the three hills. Okay, where you've got the concept of 3 and 4. You know how Sean Ross is always talking about that in his Pharaoh show videos and stuff. If you've checked out any of his stuff. He exposes all the Swiss stuff, all the Swiss Templar stuff. It's huge. And he's talking about they always have combinations of 3, 4, and 7, okay? And they take that off the original thing. Yeah, that's the one that I was talking about. And the same with the yin-yang stuff as well. You get a triple yin-yang stuff as well. That's the one. Now, what that's meant to symbolize, okay, that 3, the mountain of the 3 hills. We have the mother, the child, and the father, okay? And you have the mother on one side, the father on the other, and the child is in the center in between, which is the creation of the masculine and the feminine, okay? And originally in Australia, they ripped that off into Egyptian to be sort of Osiris, Isis, and Set, right? In their whole demonized Draco thing. Well, that's ripped off from what's called Haru, H-A-R-U, in the Australian sort of knowing here. So they identity hijacked too, the Australian stuff too, to be the Egyptian stuff once it all fell out of the Mudge's hands, okay? Now, that Haru originally goes back, that mother, and you see that Haru symbol, those 3 circles, literally on the carry-on glyphs there. I'll point it out to you sometime, okay? And basically, that Haru was actually a kangaroo, and they replaced it in Egyptian law with a jackal, okay? That's what Set and Sekhmet is, okay? But originally it was actually a kangaroo sort of hybrid from here. That's Haru. And that connects back, okay, to the mountain of the 3 hills, which is in central Australia, which is Uluru, Katachuta, and what used to be called Attila Mountain. They changed to Connor Mountain, okay? And that's the original Babel. And before it was Babel, it was like 3 huge trees that basically went to the heavens and a whole canopy of all stuff. And, oh, it was so beautiful. I just can't even begin to describe it. I'll probably start breaking down and crying or something. But because it's that beautiful.
I just had an epiphany here while I was looking at this particular symbol,
Yep.
Gauze and Clarence. This one right here, right?
Yep.
And this right here, oddly enough, kind of looks like this right here. I'll show you. It's
Yep.
kind of interesting. Maybe you have some thoughts on this. Let me bring that up.
Because the mountain of the 3 hills is on the Hungarian
Right here. So Yeah, if you remember that symbol that I just showed, and if we look at this one over here, I forgot what it's called, the Schick disc or the Schick disc, something like that. They almost look identical. You see that?
Oh, wow.
Right? This one right here, right, looks similar.
That was found in Peru, right?
Yeah. No, this is in Egypt. This is Egyptian.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. Yep.
Yeah, this is in Egypt. Like, here's another image of it. It's made out of like some sort of a really brittle stone. But when you look at this right here, it kind of reminds me of that symbol that I was just showing.
I think you just hit the nail on the head there, Omar. That literally looks like technology that's basically designed off something natural.
Yeah, exactly. That's crazy. I was just sitting here when I was looking at that, I was like, hey, wait a minute, it reminds me of that shit disc that
that's really observant. And so this is the thing. From the three, okay, the mother, the child, and the father, we get the mountain, which is the fourth aspect, okay? Which is the whole combination that makes the one, okay? You know, the feminine and the masculine combined, and the child in the center that basically is the creation of the masculine and the feminine coming together in all the omniverse, in every single level. So how can we basically have all these endocrine disrupted, homosexual, compromised people running our governments, and they're not even experts in their portfolios or anything, they're just bullshit artists, you know? All they do is just speak rubbish, you know?
Yeah.
And we're not even experts. And we need real experts to run government now. And unfortunately, we're not ready for the world to be in self-government. I mean, real anarchism, okay? Self-autonomy. Because no one's smart enough yet, okay? And it'll take, as Max Egan says, it'll take a generation of the right education to get us back on track before we can do that. So in the meantime, we need some form of regency sort of government to take over from the pervert powers and Illuminati beings and fake rulers and all that sort of stuff. You think they've got the right to rule because they fucked into the bloodline of Jesus. Well, how ridiculous, you know?
Yeah.
You know, and you're not even doing earth custodian work, you fucking bunch of reptoids.
Yeah, no shit, eh?
All you're doing is eating children and all the rest of it. And,
that's it.
You're fucking filth. And,
that makes me mad.
Hormones so you can keep your human form because you've got too many reptoid genetics in you. It's like, come on, it's over. It's finished. All your veils off. All the curses are
off already. Right. All right, guys, we are hitting the 3-hour marker here.
Oh, really?
Yeah, this has been fantastic. I didn't even realize like 3 hours have passed by. Last time I looked at it, we're sitting at like an hour, and then I looked and we were like 2.5 hours. Like, holy shit, this is really good. But let's cut it at 3 hours. And we should do a round 2, Gauze, and carry this conversation forward, because this is fascinating, and a lot of great information has come out here, and lots to look back on. So, but let's do a round 2 in the coming days. And I know it's getting very, very early in the morning for you there, because you started at 2, so it's probably like close to 5 o'clock in the morning for you.
Well, it literally is. It's 2 minutes to 5, but literally the last, ever since I've been literally doing healing work regarding the moon and all that sort of stuff, from the last strawberry moon, that was in, when was it? In May, I think. I think it was in May. It was on this specific moon. It was like this really still, calm moon. It wasn't like the usual sort of pandemonium sort of moon. And so I basically picked this particular flavour of moon with this shaman to basically go up and do magic work, because I'd just like to end on this, is that the actual meeting point where the 2 ovaries from Earth, from the original sort of seeding production here in Australia, one ovary is at Uluru, another one is in the Brisbane area, okay? And where those 2 ovaries meet are the 2 rivers of the Darling and the Murray River, where they meet literally at the centre line of the Kadisha, of where these ovaries meet back here.
Yeah.
I can show you a map on this sort of stuff. I just don't know how to basically share yet with on this screen. Maybe I'll get a bit more savvy with that so I can show you some more examples next time. Because
what we'll do is before we do our next live, we'll just come into the studio a few minutes early, and then I'll show you how to share the screen. Really easy. And then that way you can share graphs and charts and images and such.
I'd just like to show you this. This is river sand right from that place that I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So this is literally the place where all the souls in the world that have been trapped in song lines and all sorts of dragon lines, as they call it, the original dragon race stuff, because the Dracos have identity hijacked the original reptilian dragon races too from here and elsewhere, and demonized those reptilians that have been doing the healing progress with the Mudgers since such ancient times. We don't have even information of it anymore, and they've gone back time travel through history to fuck things up even further. Okay?
Yeah. That reminds me of that one Star Trek movie where the board went back in time to assimilate humanity. Kind of what it sounds like what's going on here with these Dracos, where they've time traveled to go back in time to fuck with us, and it's affecting us here in real time.
Yeah, they're literally telling you in the fiction what they're doing with it.
Real time, but
that's right. That's exactly right. And I will talk to you about the split timeline process, because they always do a 9/11 event to split the timelines. Okay, so basically for the 9 to go back to the 2 again. Okay, being the 11, missing the 10, where they cut the head off of humanity, which they basically symbolize in their pagan calendar as the birthday of John the Baptist in the middle of the pagan calendar, doing that to humanity. That's what that's symbolizing. But anyway, what this is about, do you notice that there's a certain sort of aura in this sand? You might be able to see it from there.
I see gold.
Yes, bingo. That's what I wanted you to see. It's got natural gold in the river sand.
Mm-hmm.
This gold-laced river sand is magnetic. And the thing is that the council down in that area of the Murray have been deliberately moving all that sand, that precious sacred sand, okay, with all spirit, lost souls and spirits can go back to Mother, so the dream kind can continue. Well, the council has been removing that sand for 20 years down there, right? But the thing is that every time that they move it and dump it somewhere else, because it's magnetic, it always comes back to Mother there.
Wow. That's crazy.
Okay?
That's just running in circles chasing your tail.
That's it. These Illuminati fuckwits know this stuff. So they're basically ordering their lower plebeians through the councils and stuff. Go and move all this fucking sand. We'll pay you $2,000 a week. Go and do it. You know? Everyone for the money that doesn't think what they're fucking doing. And anyway, so basically, wherever this sand is dumped in the world, within a year, it'll get back to its origin.
Wow, it's almost like remember we did that show about a month and a half ago, Clarence, where we were talking about that smart metal, the smart alloy.
Memory memo.
That's kind of what the sand is reminding me of, is that smart sand where it goes back to the origin, right? Regardless of where it is.
Yeah,
that's funny. I just posted that this morning.
Yeah,
now I've got an orgone generator behind me, actually. I've got a radionics machine, and I combine it with my centering work, and man, have I got some shielding and some energy mad stuff going on here. And I've got 10 orgonite pucks going all around this house that's laced with 24 karat gold as well, that this machine is constantly filling, and I've basically literally made energy grids everywhere, okay? And I've literally got a spell reverser on that machine. You see all that stuff on that table there?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All that stuff is being used for magic.
Oh, wow.
Because once you know how to combine energy and elements and things like that, well, it's all microcosm, macrocosm stuff, okay? And so all you got to do is connect the microcosm to the greater macrocosm, and away you go.
Yeah.
And I've also got this sand on there as well, okay? Plus some other gold, plus some beyond 24 karat liquid gold that I also drink. And I use this all for my energy work and magic. And I'll say this openly now, okay? And on that full moon, I basically did some magic in combination with another man, and I'm not going to say what he did because that's his business as well and not mine, if he wants to tell it. But basically, if you think about this sand magnetically, if this is going to go back to mother, no matter where you dump it in the world, imagine what you can do if you set magic to energetically get lost souls and spirits to go with that sand.
Yeah.
And guide them home.
Crazy.
That's powerful.
Yep.
Yes. And for a lot of other magnetic sort of uses as well. Connect with the sun, everything. Because we're meant to be the custodians with the astronomy and astrology as well. Why should we be going by a Draco astrology sort of programming when we are actually it?
Yeah, yeah. I suppose we've been hijacked. That's the whole thing, is that we've been hijacked to believe something which is not true to our nature, but is true to their nature, and they're trying to implement that upon us and trying to get that mirror effect, right? Where if I'm like this, then you must be like this as well. And through thousands of years of programming, this is the consequence of today.
Yeah. And I reckon they've done most of it in the last 108 years, since 1913, when they started the Fed. And also that's the same time they started splitting the timelines, literally sending armies and people back in time and literally take over the stuff that they couldn't take over much easier back in real history.
Yeah.
So there's a whole possibility that the Vatican was made retroactively and never existed in the fucking first place.
Huh.
Yeah, that's a good thought to ponder. I wish they never existed, because then 1,088 children would have lived.
And I've been involved in what's called the Malda Project, which is a very secret aspect of Montauk, which is the genetic project, which involves dimensional activation, soul, where they can literally dimensionally activate a soul from one body to another body and vice versa.
Oh, I just watched just attended a conference about a month ago talking about something similar to that, but they were calling it walk-ins, right?
Yeah.
Where, yeah, very interesting. That's another rabbit hole that we should go down. All right, guys, let's cut it here. Okay. We are at 3 hours and 6 minutes. It's been a wonderful conversation. Fantastic. Let's do some closing remarks, and then we'll close out for the day. So let me start with Clarence, and then we'll go over to Gauze, and then I'll pay the bills, and then we'll call it a day. Go ahead, Clarence.
Well, I just want to thank guys for being here, and quite an incredible journey we did today. Pretty cool. I can't wait for the second part to come out. So but just a quick note, let everybody know that I am back on Facebook, and I am starting to post again back on our Closer Encounters page, and hopefully within the week or so we will be doing some more live shows. So yeah, keep your fingers crossed.
Crossover. Go ahead, Josh.
Thank you, Clarence, and it's been a real pleasure to spontaneously meet you and just sort of jump in the deep end like this. And
yeah,
and, you've been, you haven't actually said much, Clarence, but you've got to watch the quiet ones, because they're the ones that observe and actually listen. So good on you, man.
Yeah,
I'm always into it. Believe me.
That's it. Yeah. It's not like I might be talking about a whole lot of stuff, but really, I'm one of those people. I'll go out and socialize with people, and if they're talking about trivial sort of stuff, matrix stuff, I'll just be sitting there bored with nothing to say. But if we're talking about the right stuff, you can't shut me up, as you can see here now. So if we're talking about trivial distraction stuff, I've got nothing to say.
Yeah.
It's like, sorry, I know what I am. I should say what I is. If I say I am, that's about ego. I is, that's not about ego. That's a present state of being.
Yeah, that's a good one, because I use the pseudonym I am one. So
yeah. I is one.
Yeah, I is one. Maybe I should change that. I is one.
Yeah. This is more of a present sort of, I don't even know what you call it, an advert or this, that. My brain's fried at the moment, because I don't even want to.
It's 5 o'clock in the morning too, brother. You've been up all night. You're a true soldier.
But this is the thing, when you're centered and grounded, and I had like a bulletproof coffee that I've still got that's cold now, and I basically added, okay, you're stoned off the coffee. The butter draws out the psychoactive qualities of the coffee and then puts it into the coconut oil, which is the best carrier oil, and you don't get coffee jitters or anything like that. You get this really deep sort of focus for 8-10 hours. You can just keep on going. And then I add to it ginger, I add Mucuna pruriens, and then I add Ecuadorian sort of cacao powder and cacao butter. Oh my goodness. It's like, yeah, it's gorgeous.
Wow.
It's a vacation for the taste buds.
And then I put actually real vanilla paste in it and a little bit of real maple syrup as my sweet. I don't use sugar. I use coconut sugar that's good for you, but I never use anything that's hybrid in the plant kingdom. And
coconut sugar. I should look into that. Never heard of that before.
No.
Yeah, because Dr. Sebi goes into it and he nails it in the sense of he's not even a doctor, and he took the FDA to court and won, okay, because he proved he healed all these people and he advertised he could heal AIDS and all that sort of thing, and they thought, hold it, we'll wheel him into court. He got 70 testimonials through doctors and stuff that he actually did heal people. And basically he says that when you basically get non-hybrid herbs, fruits, plants, okay, vegetables, you're getting the phosphates in them, okay? You're getting the real important phosphates, and through the phosphates, you're getting the communication, spirit communication from nature, and they're electrically charging your body cells to give you energy. Now, if you're eating plants and vegetables and herbs that are hybrids, you're not getting all that phosphate and sulfate value, and hence you're wasting your time. You may as well be eating meat.
No.
You're going to get more from meat. And the thing is that in this day and age, it's like they've polluted absolutely everything. And there's not many safe sort of mechanisms of food to actually have anymore, you know, both in the, if you're eating meat or eating plants. And you have to have this knowledge to get through. And so I literally only put into my body the things that are going to work for my body electricity, my circle board, what I need to do for my energy work and to keep me going. And I've still got injuries because I've basically been jabbed twice by psychotic medication. They've tried to shut me up. They've tried to close me down a couple of times. And I've had to literally work miracles in order to heal myself, to get all my senses back, you know, and all the weight that it puts on and it destroys your body, that stuff. It's eugenic stuff. Yeah. I've lived through that stuff, and I'm a living testimony of healing myself from so much stuff. I should be dead by now, but I'm not. So I say to people, lose the fear. Fear is a liar, okay? Get centered. Be control of your own energy, so you can't have your instincts pimped and mimicked and used against you by the Draco and their Illuminati minions. And if you basically become your own, you anchor your own soul energy, you root it here, we starve the beast. That's the bottom line.
Fear is poison.
Yeah.
Fear is poison, not only for your avatar, but for your consciousness as well.
That's
you know, just anytime there's fear inserted into your life, become an observer. You know, look at it from a third party and stand back and say, "Oh, yeah." You know, stand back and say, "Whoa, you know, I don't allow that fear into my life. I don't give it permission. I'm a sovereign being, and that is not for me." And then just reinsert yourself back into you know, your position, and that fear will just simply disappear. And visualize that fear just, you know, going away, and you know, and believe that fear is gone. And this way, you'll be in control of your own consciousness, and that is the key.
And when you envisage in the future that you're already healed, that's what's going to manifest and happen.
Exactly, right? Because we have the ability to program the future because we're interacting with a matrix. This is a computer program, and we can interact with it and write the program that we want to see for ourselves. Like, you know, sometimes, you know, I'll hear, you know, hey, you know, if we don't do this or if we don't do that, you know, this can happen in 2 weeks or this can happen in a month, right? Now, I think to myself, no, and I stop myself right there, and it's like, no, that's not what's going to happen in 2 weeks from now or a month from now. This is what's going to happen in 2 weeks from now or a month from now. And I visualize that in my mind. And because I visualized it, it's going to manifest. That energy is going to manifest. So in 2 weeks' time or a month's time,
whatever it is that I visualized and whatever it is that I said.
Oh, come on, brother. It gets even better than that, because that's the starting phase. What you're saying is correct. Take it to a deeper level, and you just work off no time, omniversal time, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You know, moving in the abstract nature of how the omniverse sort of expresses and moves in motion in ways, omnidirectional, if any at all.
Mm-hmm.
And basically speaking, all life is contained in the present moment. So if you connect with here, you don't even work for programming. You're moving with the waves of life as it works itself. So you're moving spontaneously. And I have a saying, spontaneity created in the moment, existing in life, is the truth. Because
yeah, that's beautiful. I like that.
In that spontaneous moment, when you're centered, all the information everywhere from, if you want to know everything out there, you go deeper in here.
That's right. Seek inwards, outwards answers.
Use our eyes to look for everything for salvation out here, where all the answers are here.
Yeah. I said something like that on Paul Wallace's show yesterday. Or no, actually, it was Saul Rita. She was on with Jean-Claude on Beyond Mystic, and they were talking about something. And I said the same thing. You know, you have to look inwards to get the answers of the outwards, right? So look in, look within.
I used to say when I was younger, inward, action, outwards. And I put a sticker on the back of my guitar. And then my brother one day reads it in a Freudian way. And he said, "You're disgusting," in the sense that he's thinking about sex, inward, action, outwards.
Yeah.
And I'd actually never even thought of it like that. I was actually putting it on the back of the guitar to remind myself when I play the guitar to go deeper in. So literally inward, the action happens in the soul, and then it all just plays itself outwards.
Yeah, I've got a friend of mine, Aaron Fowler, does the same thing.
My brother misses it. He thought it was all Freudian, and I just thought, that's telling me about what's happened to him.
Yeah, it's a mentality too, right? I didn't think of it like that either until you mentioned it, and I was like, hey, wait a minute, that's pretty perverted.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, guys.
But can you see how there's a real meaning and there's a perverse meaning?
That's right. Yeah.
You've got to go with that original meaning, and when you get to that original meaning, that's what reverses the curses and unveils all the perverted stuff. So what people have got to do now is realize that all this Illuminati stuff is all ripped off the original human affinity. That's all the Magyar stuff is at the core of. And they had to get rid of the magicians, the Magi, in order to basically take out the rest of humanity. So if you work out what's happened through the rubbing out of the Magyar core affinity of humanity that goes all the way back to Mu, Lemuria, and all the rest of it and beyond, okay? If you work out what happens there, then all the other histories around it will all fall into place, and everyone will be able to work out their genetic history and find their own way back home, because as souls, we're all one anyway, come from the same original origin.
Yeah.
You know, this skin color and genetics, this is all just like, you know, cartoon genetics compared to our original genetics. So don't worry about it anyway. Regardless of color or, you know, whatever, you know.
I look at these avatars as, you know, creating an avatar on a video game. You know, you give it all sorts of like funky hair colors and clothes and, you know, body, you know, things and such, you know. So for me, this meat bag is, you know, no different than an avatar that I create on a video game. You know, it has really no meaning, right, beyond the goals of the vessel that it needs to carry out, and that's pretty much it. All right, guys, thank you very much. It's been 3 hours and 17 minutes. I really appreciate you guys for watching, sharing, commenting, and you know, sharing your thoughts with us. Thank you very much, guys. Really appreciate the download that you gave us, and I'm looking forward to round 2 of this. As we've opened up so many
you guys. And thank you for providing such a great space for me to be able to get as much as possible sort of uploaded from my soul. You're
very welcome. We opened up so many rabbit holes today that I think we're going to be busy for the next little while investigating all of this and talking about it to get a clearer understanding and a picture of all of this that we talked about today. So, you know, great job, guys. Thank you very much, Clarence, for coming in and co-hosting with me. You know, I love you, and you know, we've done
tons and tons of work together. So I always enjoy having you with me. And of course, the people that are watching this on YouTube and Facebook, the mad respect for you guys. Thank you very much for checking us out. And now just to quickly pay a couple of bills, this show was brought to you by the Eden series of Paul Anthony Wallace, The Scars of Eden, and as well as Escaping from Eden. Here's Escaping from Eden, which is available at any bookstore. And here's a sequel to Escaping from Eden, The Scars of Eden. And then there's a third, a trilogy, actually, this is turning into. So that's going to be coming up. It's available at any bookstores, or visit paulanthonywallace.com. That's scrolling on the bottom to go and check out his site and to put your orders. And this is like it's a gateway book, Escaping from Eden and The Scars of Eden, where anyone can read this, and then it will help them get into this genre that we're in. It opens dialogue and conversation, and and then we can expand from that. So it's a wonderful series to check out. And then, of course, on August 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, we have our Total Disclosure event happening. 10 hours, 11 hours a day for 5 straight days, featuring 55 lecturers and conscious music. And we're going to be talking about pretty much every single school of thought out there, because we've been looking for disclosure, and the American government and the senators, they actually didn't really give us anything. So it's really up to us, the people, to create the disclosure and to release this disclosure so that we can use this information in our day-to-day lives to make our lives even better. And then the next thing I've got going on, starting in a few days, is I'll be doing a North American Aboriginal series where I'm going to be looking at creation stories, mythological stories, sacred stories, sacred dance, and sacred chanting, things like that. I'll be beginning that in a couple of days, so keep an eye out for this on this space. Should be a very interesting series. I'm going to be going from East Coast to the West Coast, and then looking at the United States and of course Canada. That's where I'm from. Canada, actually, I'm from the source, but I just happen to be occupying this space in Canada right now. So with that being said, guys, thank you very much for your participation today. Really appreciate it. And we will be back with Gauze, hopefully in a few days. Stay safe out there. And remember, send some energy to us here in British Columbia. We have over 300 fires happening. And, I'm I am literally surrounded by fire.
So they've basically done the directed energy weapons to do the same in California and what they did here at the beginning of 2020.
California is on fire. The entire Northwest is on fire. It's actually kind of scary, because I was looking at the map last night of all the fires, and literally there's my town, and then I'm surrounded by uncontrolled fires, and there's like over 300 fires across the province. So please send your energy and help us fight this.
Thank you for letting me know, because I don't watch the mainstream news. I only basically get it I basically watch Max Egan and sort of Jeff Berwick and a couple of people like that that basically keep on Brendan McConnell. To keep on top of all aspects of everything, so I can keep focused on my work as well. But I've studied all the COVID stuff. I know it's a hoax, all that sort of stuff. And I know medical stuff as well, because my mother was a pathologist and all that sort of thing. So I'm son of a sort of a top-ranking sort of doctor sort of type and all that. And she went to Royal College of Medicine in London, blah, blah, blah. So by all means, I'm going to basically do what I can to send some energy. I did the same thing when they basically bushfired the Amazon, when basically they couldn't win the court case over there. So like 12 children, they thought we were going to burn it down anyway. And basically speaking, I basically poured as much sort of energy I could into putting that situation out. I don't know how successful I was, but basically I know that this stuff works, because basically, to what degree, it works in waves. The more that you do it, it builds up and builds up and builds up and builds up until it comes through in such a flooding force, they can't stop it. And I've been doing this for years continually. And so all I say to people is put your soul-centered energy into basically forming rain and putting these fires out. And if we all do it, we can actually control the weather to actually do it. And if you focus on it,
that's where the rain dance and the sun dance and all of that
Right.
comes from, because it's in our past. We've just been detached from that information, and luckily that we're going back to that, to our grassroots and rediscovering this ancient knowledge that we can put to use for ourselves. So, guys, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Please send us energy and help us energetically fight these fires that are happening here in the Northwest, and also send your energy to Cuba. There's a lot happening down there. There's an uprising against the communist government. There was some massive floods that happened in Belgium and the Netherlands and France yesterday. So let's collectively bring our energies together and send our energies there to help in any which way that we can. So now, with that being said, love you guys very much, and I will see you guys next time. My name is Omar, coming at you guys from British Columbia, Smoky British Columbia, Canada. And also, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and hit that bell so that when I go live, then you'll be notified. And and that's pretty much it, man. You guys take care, and we will see you next time. Bye for now.